Alrighty, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker podcast brought to you by Shin Waiters. I'm Jeff Stanfield.
I'm Andy Shaver. Got the most interesting man in the world on, Mr. Wyman Meinzer.
Thanks, guys.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Why don't you start a podcast?
Oh man, I don't know. The older I get, the more private I get. I just kind of hang back.
I mean, you wouldn't have to necessarily talk about your personal life. I mean, you know so much Texas history and just you're a very worldly person. I mean, you've got a lot of experiences.
I'd rather you guys ask me questions and I try to answer them.
You do a good job answering them, though.
Well, thank you.
There's not a lot of rooms that I go into that I think that person's more interesting than I am. I know this sounds kind of cocky, but it's true. You're a lot more interesting person than I am. And I know that when I walk in the room, but there's not a lot of places that that guy's got a better story than me and stuff. And you got a hell of a story.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And I'm assuming every room you go into, everybody wants to talk to you.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people are going to functions that you are the speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's surprising, if not humbling. You know, I can be in Cabela's or somewhere walking down the street in Lubbock, and one time in San Antonio, I was walking down the street, and this guy come up to me, and I'm going, am I about to be mugged?
Right.
And he shook my hand, and he said, hey, you're the guy that was on the Yeti film on Chasing Light? And I said, yes, sir, I am. And he said, I'm going to tell you, he said that was inspiring, and that was pretty humbling.
Yeah, that's what you want to hear. You're an interesting guy. I mean, you started out in Knox County, Texas.
Yeah, out on the ranch. You know,
Well, you had on your Facebook, you were in Lubbock, and somebody came up to you in a restaurant. Or they didn't come up to you, they paid for your dinner.
yeah, that's happened 2 or 3 times, yeah. That was in I forgot the restaurant, but it was in a Chinese restaurant, and I was just talking to this guy, and we were exchanging, stories and stuff, and then I believe he mentioned, that he read my Facebook and everything, and then he left and then came back and got his cap, and then whenever he had time to leave the parking lot, I got up to pay, and the lady said, that gentleman has paid for your dinner, your lunch, and I'm going, wow.
Well, that's opposite. So cool. When people read my Facebook, they usually don't buy me shit. I usually get quite the opposite reaction there, so you're doing better than me. And we're both politically about the same.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
As an educator,
yes, sir.
What do you think about all this critical race theory stuff?
I think it's bullshit. It's just total bullshit.
Ain't it amazing though? They just try to push us down. I don't understand all this.
Sure. Well, it's they're feeling they've got the momentum, and I don't think they realize that the average American is really getting tired. Really getting tired.
And it's not just the Republican average American; it's everybody.
That's right. People are going, wait a minute. This is just going way too far.
Well, Bill Maher, he's about as far left as you can get, and he's had it up to here.
Yeah,
the last couple of videos I've seen of him on Facebook, he is just like he's fed up with where they are in the Democratic Party. He's the last person I thought would go.
Yeah, I agree, and I just don't understand why they keep pushing this crap. I don't know what their agenda is other than it's total domination, total rule over all of us minions. I don't understand. Because it's not going to happen.
No, they're bullies.
They're bullies until you stand up and punch them.
Oh, I'd like to punch a bunch of them suckers right in the mouth.
And then they take off.
Yeah, they're the kind of bully that they're the typical chicken shit bully. They're a real tough guy till somebody pops them in the nose, and they're going to go home and you ain't going to see from them again.
Right.
One of the things that really is irritated me lately is the hypocrisy of the critical race stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think all history should be taught. Everything.
I do too.
And I think that we should teach about slaves. Slavery was a horrible thing.
Absolutely.
But we ought to talk about how slavery come about. Slavery's still going on in Africa now.
It's still going on in a lot of places. And who brought the slaves to the shoreline?
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't just some white.
It wasn't one of us, one of our group out there hunting around in the desert for people.
Right.
No, Colonel Sanders just wasn't one day in freaking Georgia looking at his cotton plantation and said, you know what? We need to go to Africa and enslave some people and bring them here.
Right.
That's not how it all went down, but they don't ever talk about that part.
No.
And so if you're going to teach stuff, teach the whole story of it. And then we've getting now where we're taking away Andrew Jackson's statues. And we take him away, but then we put a statue up of George Floyd. There is nothing about George Floyd that was good.
Goodness gracious. Oh no. I mean, I don't. That's just. Well, I mean, that's just the sign of what they're trying to do. It's they're trying to change history.
Yeah, and they're propagating him as a hero, and he's not a hero.
Well, he's
a thug.
He was a dopehead and a thug.
Yes, he was. Exactly right. No different than if we had now, it's a different thing, but it's the same. Charles Manson.
Mm-hmm.
Would you put a statue of Charles Manson? Hell no, he's a piece of shit.
I guess the liberals would.
They
but I
right.
certainly would.
No,
I
but we
wouldn't. Yeah.
But as a white person, I don't justify something over skin color.
Right.
I'm not going to say, oh, well, he's white, so we're going to do this.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
And you can't tell me that a black reverend at any church in America would think that we need to make George Floyd a hero.
I wouldn't think so.
But they go along with it, and that wears me out.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
There's people. There's just a lot of people that don't have any backbone.
Right. And Charles Manson and George Floyd are not the same person, but they're both neither one someone needs to look up to as a hero.
They're not right. High grade people. Right.
And I didn't realize the buffalo hunters were black. That's still.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
We talked about the buffalo hunters.
Yeah.
I don't know of any buffalo hunters.
It's what they called them.
Buffalo soldiers.
Buffalo soldiers.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Buffalo soldiers.
Yeah, Buffalo soldiers were black.
Yeah.
Because they said the hair on their head
was like a buffalo.
Was like a buffalo.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bet you those were some mean rank boys.
Well, a lot of those guys also were Seminoles, and which were a mixture of the Seminole tribe in Florida and the blacks that runaway slaves. And incidentally, I was watching a show on that last night, a documentary, and it was quite interesting because some of the Seminoles, I believe I'm correct in saying this, that they never signed a peace treaty. They never did.
Wow.
They were one of the tribes, or the tribe that never signed a peace treaty with the Americans.
Never.
That's why there's not a lot of casinos in Florida, I guess.
I guess so. But what's interesting is you can go to Brackettville, Texas, and go south of Brackettville, and there's this little nondescript cemetery. I still remember on the east side of the highway. You're headed south, and it is full of Medal of Honor recipients, and a lot of them are Seminole Indian scouts and stuff.
Really?
That's crazy. Well, the Buffalo soldiers had a lot of discipline.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Because when they were at Fort Griffin,
yeah.
they were the ones that could get to listen to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because they would take orders.
Yeah.
The regular soldiers were not real good at taking orders when they got drunk. They get drunk and that must have been one wild ass time to live.
It was. I once interviewed back in the 80s. I did a story on buffalo hunters. I was doing a lot of writing at the time for various magazines on the buffalo hunting era, and there was an old gentleman in a rest home in Albany, and oh my goodness, let's see if I can remember his name. Anyway, he was the son of McCombs, Miles, something like that. McCombs was his name, and his daddy was a very big buffalo hunter in the 1870s. And I asked him, Miles McCombs, and he said, I said, did your dad? And of course, he couldn't walk, couldn't get up, but he had a good mind on him. And the questions I asked him were things. Well, he answered in a manner that I'd already heard a lot of it, but one in particular interested me, and it coincided with, I think, a comment from J. Wright Moore when he said that I never slept. I never spent the night in Fort Griffin, and he said that Papa, and this is the exact words he said. Papa said, I never stayed one night in Fort Griffin because it was hell on earth.
I can believe that.
I just drove past there a couple days ago. We went and ate at the Beehive.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I'd been telling my wife about this, and this is a knock on the public education. She's got no clue about Fort Griffin.
Really?
Not a clue. It's an hour away.
Yeah.
As I was because we were watching Tombstone, and I was like, Wyatt Earp was at this place, Doc Holliday, Big Nose Kate, and I was telling her like all these people were just outside of Albany in the 1800s. Yeah. She's like, "You're kidding me," and I'm like, "No, I promise."
Drive down the highway, go past if you want to go, just drive to the river from Albany, and there on your left, it's like a wheat field. Sometime I think it's maybe a milo field. But you look at that empty field, and this is what gets me. I've done it dozens of times, and I look out across that empty field, and I think, at one time in history, that was probably one of the wildest places in America, and it's now nothing but an empty field.
It's nothing.
It's on Bucky's place, isn't it? Is that part of the nail?
Not sure.
I'm not sure if that's a nail or not.
I think Bucky said
the
that.
Nail
I
know it's farther back to the north. The nail is because I've gone back in there, but the very idea that at one time that all those people like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday passed through there, and you look at it and it's just dirt.
That's crazy.
And the average person will have no idea when they see shows like Tombstone that place was probably wilder than Tombstone.
Yeah. That's what we got to talking, and I think the sheriff had just gotten shot in Tombstone or something. And I was like Fort Griffin, like you need to do your homework on it because it was just. And I was telling her what you had said and kind of what we'd read. Like it was the epitome of the Wild West. Like it's shootouts and
it was Dodge City, Kansas, and Texas.
Exactly, and that at one time there were 30 people killed in 30 days.
Ooh, that's Chicago stats right there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And they got so tired of it and became so weary of it that a vigilante committee got going, and they would hang these guys in those pecan trees next to the river.
Oh wow!
And they would put on their chest, "Whoever takes this man down will replace him."
Oh.
Yeah. They'd let them see.
Let them sit there and hang till their old neck stretched out and they drop.
The toughest person in them places was the 35-year-old prostitute that had survived that long.
I agree.
And what a life that she had. She had nothing left.
One of my favorite stories that I read in one of the history books was that one night somebody had it in for someone that was in like the Bison or one of those saloons. Might have been where Big Nose Kate was, and he stepped in and started shooting, and the lights went out. And I mean, pistols were going off, and when they finally got the lanterns back on, the only man killed was a lawyer sitting at the end of the bar.
They got the right guy then.
Not messing with anybody.
That's right.
Have you been to? I think we talked about this one time. Where Custer was killed at.
Yeah.
What's the name of that place that's left me right now?
It's the Bighorn Battlefield.
Yes. Yeah. Have you been there before?
Yes, a couple times.
Yeah. It's crazy when you sit there. There's no trees, no nothing there.
No.
Just the middle of wide open shit and
grass and wind.
It's amazing. Places like that have played such a big part in the history of our country.
Yeah.
This here says Joe McCombs.
Joe McCombs.
1874, two skinners and a 20-year-old Joe McCombs embarked on the first hide expedition.
Yeah.
He skinned 700 bison in 2 months. Moving to a new location, McCombs skinned 1,300 more.
So he took 2,000. They took him to Fort Worth, didn't they? Ain't that where they shipped him to?
They would sell them at Fort Griffin, and they would ship out from there most of the time.
They killed most of them north of Childress. That's a long freaking horse ride.
Well, no, a lot of it went north Childress, but McCombs worked a lot around Big Springs. He said, I killed 1,000 bulls in the site of Big Springs, of the springs itself. He said you could see all 1,000 carcasses.
So that was the big draw, was the springs there in Big
Springs.
Because when I think of Big Springs, I do not think of water now.
Yeah, right.
Such a different world.
So this picture here, I don't know if it's accurate at all.
That's in Dodge City.
That's in Dodge City?
Yes.
What, is that a trench that they've got built? Or are they going to...
That's just harvest.
No,
that's all hides.
That's just
that's
raw
all
hides. Yeah, it's raw hides. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see. It's kind of like a haystack almost.
Yeah, they said the hides would weigh, a dried hide would weigh about 50 pounds.
And who was buying them?
A guy by the name of Lobenstein out of Dodge City. I believe he was out of Dodge City. And it might have been another Kansas town. But Lobenstein is a man who actually pushed J. Wright Moore into hunting, and J. Wright Moore was one of the great hunters. You know, J. Wright Moore, Big Jim White, Joe McCombs. They were selling Charles Hart. There were several guys who made a big name in Texas.
And then they would just retail them, sell them in shops?
Ship them to Germany for leather.
Really?
They found that in Europe, the bison hide, bison leather was actually more durable than cowhide and bullhide. Yeah.
So I wonder
in
if
industrial belts.
Belts.
Yes.
So not boots or anything like that.
No, industrial belts.
That's fascinating.
And so they could kill buffalo at several seasons. No, I say several seasons. It only lasted like 4 years, but they would kill them in the summer because it wasn't the hair on them. It wasn't the winter coat. It was just the hide they were after.
Not the fur or anything like that. So they weren't doing it for warmth or anything like that.
Right. So like they shipped the beaver back to England. That was the big thing in Europe. And they wanted the winter hide for that.
Yes.
But the buffalo, I've always wondered about that. Yeah. So they just wanted the leather. They didn't care nothing about the hide.
Right. Now, of course, a lot of the hides were shipped to like Chicago and places for coats. But the big demand was in Europe for the leather to run industrial the factories, because they had these long, the big belts that run all the machinery and stuff.
I'm sure you have. You've wore a buffalo robe before, haven't you?
I put one on, yeah.
Some bitches are heavy. I'd hate to have to robe them very long.
I've skinned some buffalo, and I'm gonna tell you something. That's a job, and that's a big, heavy hide. Yeah.
What's a hide? 80 to 100 pounds?
I don't remember. All I recall is it was heavy. I skinned 4 or 5 one afternoon after lunch, and
wow,
and it nearly put me down.
Did you take the meat also?
Yeah. For my dogs, because they'd been dead for a day.
Oh, okay. So that's a lot of chore to quarter up 4 damn buffalo.
Oh man, tell me about it. I mean, it was like at sundown. I'd skinned my 4th. I believe it was before. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. I skinned 4 from lunch till sundown. And of course, I was in my 60s, and I'm going, how in the world did these daggum guys, they were talking about, Charles Hart Skinner, they said a good skinner could skin 40 a day. And I'm going, how do they do it? And then I thought, well, they were under 20 years old.
Yeah, and they also had some tricks to the trade too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, they had mules that would skin around the head and then skin down the legs and the belly, and then they'd pull it off with mules. I had a 4-wheeler. I did the same thing. I just put a rock in the hide and wrapped a chain around it, and then took off with the 4-wheeler and jerked it off of them after I had skinned them. Of course, I had to roll them over on their back and skin them down the belly and down the sides, and then I'd skin them around the back of their head, down to their tails. And then I just put a rock in the hide and put a knot in it, and the skin, and I'd jerk it off. Same way they did with the mule.
What'd you do with the hides?
I had them tanned.
So you got
at my house.
4 rough. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You got to have a hell of a room just to put them in.
Oh, I love it. You put one on in the wintertime, cold wind, snow blowing. I mean, you were so warm.
Yeah, I wore one in the wintertime in a blizzard hunt. Had some guys. Do you remember when all the guys in Wichita Falls, the old guys that wanted to be, I think they called the Red River Renegades?
No, I don't remember.
They were mountain men, and this would have been when I was in high school, so this would have been in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they like to go back, and first it was a Civil War reenactment, and then these guys decided they want to be mountain men.
Yeah.
And they all had mountain men names.
Yeah.
And Lane Crow, an old friend of mine, he was Two Crow, and he had all this shit. He looked like Brian Keith, or who's Mountain Man? Charlton Heston in the movie. Anyways, he looked like those guys.
Jeremiah Johnson, and that bunch?
No, the Mountain Man, the actual show Mountain Man.
I don't know.
Have you never seen that show?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's on tonight. You should watch it. It's
Okay.
on ISP or something. It is a great show. It's got Brian Keith is on it and Charlton Heston.
Okay.
And they play 2 mountain men that it's really good. You would really like it.
Yeah.
And anyways, it's the last days of being a mountain man and the prices and anyways, but they did this recreation shit. Well, this guy was duck hunting with me one time, and I had a new Cabela's Park on. He goes, "This coat's a lot better, warmer than yours is." I was like, "Well, this is new, waterproof, blah blah blah." So he made me wear that buffalo robe. Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I was sweating.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, them suckers are warm.
Absolutely.
And now it also weighed 100 pounds more than my jacket did.
Yeah.
So you skinned 4. That's a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of skinning. There's a lot of skinning for a 60-plus-year-old guy.
Would you do it
Yeah.
again?
I don't know. I wouldn't mind skinning one or two. I mean, if I had to. I mean, I shot one buffalo one time, and I swore I'd never shoot another one because it was so
Kind of
kind
boring.
of a blah deal. You know, I was shooting with a Sharps buffalo rifle, a 45 110, and he just tumbled.
It's like shooting a cow.
It is. You know, he just kind of rolled and just like went up in the air and just wham, hit the ground. I'm going, wow, that was terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
Good eating though.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good eating. Yeah.
What was Wyatt doing in Fort Griffin?
Those guys drifted to those wild towns.
Really?
That's where the money was.
Yeah. You know, they were gamblers. You know, they hit the bars and just.
But he wasn't sheriff or anything like that.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know who was a sheriff in Fort Griffin.
It was. I just read the book the other day. I can't remember. It wasn't him though. You know, you can go over to Albany and still get a lot of the papers that they have. A lot of all the stuff people are indicted and stuff. They still have all the paperwork there.
Really?
Yeah. A question for you: why do they go there? Why do guys go to Las Vegas?
Right.
Same
right.
shit. I mean,
It was just,
why did you go to any party area in any big city? Why do people go to Fort Worth Stockyards?
Yeah.
Right.
There's girls.
And but the difference is back then it was much wilder.
Oh, a whole lot wilder. They weren't carding you at the door. You didn't need a fake ID.
No.
If you had money, you could play no matter how old you were, and you could get in a whole lot of trouble real fast.
Real quick. Yeah.
I don't think people realize the debauchery that took places in those towns.
Oh, my
And I
goodness.
don't think they can imagine how bad it must have smelled.
I've thought about that many times.
Oh, you know, them women were nasty, and the guys were nastier.
Oh, well, you can figure, say Charles Hart's hunting camp, they were over near in Stonewall County, and they killed, I believe, 3,600 in, I mean, the first day he killed over, like 205 on 3 acres of land. And so you're out there for 3 months. I believe they killed 3,600 during that period of time.
Smell.
And those guys, they didn't take baths or anything. And their old hair was long. And I mean, Jesus. I remember when I trapped back in the 70s and living in that dugout, you know, I'd take a bath a week. And you got to where, you know, it's like you just couldn't hardly live with yourself.
I stayed in the Boundary Waters in Minnesota one time. We were there for 10 days. And it was real cold the first 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And it was too cold to take a bath.
Yeah.
And the first day it warmed up, I took my shirt off, and I was like, whoo.
Yeah.
I got a whiff of myself.
Yeah.
I was like, getting there some soap.
Yeah.
And there's soap that floats. And I can't remember if it's Irish Spring. One of them bars of soap floats, so it wasn't so
Yeah.
bad. But, you know, they stunk.
Oh, my
God. And
goodness. I had no
when they would
idea.
take a bath back then, they would be, when they would take a bath, was it 15 cents or something? You see them pictures from Deadwood and
Yeah,
all them places of water.
Yeah.
You know that wasn't clean ass water.
Oh, my goodness, no. My goodness, no. Thank you. Yeah.
Excuse our styrofoam. All
No,
of our
that's-
others
this-
are
This is me.
taken. But
So what wine is this, Andy? Is this some?
it's just a cab, is all it is from
Yeah.
the store here. Mom
Yeah.
was gonna bring something fancy from Mackinac Island, and she got stingy.
She got stingy.
You know, they said that they would at Rath City, which was out in Stonewall County, between Hamlin and Ashburmont, and they said on Fridays the hide wagons, either blue, I think blue hide wagons or pink hide wagons would come in from Fort Griffin bringing the prostitutes, and they would work all weekend and they would head back. Jesus Christ, I can't even fathom. I can't fathom.
They didn't know any better though.
No.
See, I would have thought a squaw would be better pickings than a Fort Griffin prostitute.
You know, old Colonel Dodge, in his book, 33 Years with the Wild Indians, he wrote that he was on a bivouac one time, I believe in Kansas, and he was in the Cheyenne country, and he said he took a Cheyenne to an Indian lady, young Indian lady, and so he was invited down to have dinner one evening, you know, with him, and he said they sat down, and I believe they put a buffalo hide or something in between them, and they put a pile of guts, and she took one end of the guts and he was supposed to take the early, and she was just grinning and gobbling, and he said, "I lost interest right there." The infatuation evaporated.
Gosh. Have you read much about Daniel Boone?
I'm sorry?
Have you read much about Daniel Boone?
I have not.
He's an interesting guy, and all the stories, Daniel Boone, his TV show, this great guy and stuff. He was a tax evader.
Oh, was he?
Big time.
Can't blame him there.
Well, no, I can't either. But he would live somewhere and get behind in taxes, no a bunch of debt, because he would get all these people to invest in him to go get. They called them long hunters, and they would go and hunt for 3 or 4 months, and they would save all these hides. Well, his ass was famous for getting the Indians would catch him and steal all his shit. That's why they never killed him, because they'd steal his shit. He was good for a fucking year's worth of hides.
Yeah.
But he'd get all these people to invest all this money in them, and then he wouldn't have nothing to do.
I had no idea.
So he'd get run off somewhere, and he'd go somewhere else and sell some shit. But he was a lands, what's the word I'm looking for? He would take land and tell them how much land was worth. Not a speculator, but anyways, but that's what he would do. He was a real estate guy.
He was a real estate agent, yeah.
Well, it wasn't a real estate agent, but kind of that. It kind of was. He'd get people to invest in this stuff, and he'd make pretty good money, and he'd go back and pay all his fucking debts from the year before. Died broke, didn't have shit.
Isn't that amazing?
But was on one trip, and he'd come back. The Indians had captured him, been gone for 15 months, and he'd come back, and his wife had a 3-month-old child.
Wow.
He started doing the math and figured that shit out. It was his younger brothers.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
Because thought he was dead. They didn't think he was ever going to come back again. And women were hard to come by in the frontier.
Yeah.
So I'll take care of you. And so anyway, she got pregnant and had that. So one of his kids wasn't even his.
Wow.
But he was an interesting guy because Kentucky was like the pinnacle of all places to go back then.
Yeah.
It was a forbidden place. The white man hadn't been there really. The Indians would save it for their big feast and stuff they needed to hunt on the Cumberland. And Daniel Boone is a very interesting guy. Very interesting character.
I've been in Kentucky and a little bit, and I gave a presentation there one time for a couple of days, and on the Cumberland Gap country, and wow, that's some rough country.
Yeah.
Tried to traverse on foot.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of stuff by foot because he was also famous for getting his fucking horses stolen all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Daniel Boone was this great warrior.
Yeah.
Because he claimed when he died he'd only killed one person in his life.
Really?
So I don't think he was a big gunfighter and stuff. I think the Indians just liked him because he was an easy pickings for them.
He was kind of naive.
Who were Hurricane Bill and Hurricane Minnie? It says they were notable Fort Griffith.
I've heard the names.
The other people I've heard of. It says Doc Holliday White or Lottie Dino.
Yeah.
Big Nose Kate. But Hurricane Bill and Hurricane Minnie.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read the book. Yeah.
I've never heard of. I don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
But it also says Bat Masterson was there.
He was there. Yeah.
And it says he had the gun that tamed the West, the 6-shooter.
I imagine a lot of them had 6-shooters.
Oh, he sold his famous gun because he needed. I guess he got broke. In Fort Griffith, so he had to sell it there.
Yeah.
I lost my.
I know. In Wrath City, I spent a lot of time there before they actually did their excavation, their official excavation, and boy, I'm telling you, they did a lot of shooting.
Really?
Lots of shooting, lots of Colt 45. Boy, I mean, you'd find just. Especially around where the bar was, apparently that they'd go outside and they did a lot of they shot a lot of whiskey bottles because you'd find the tops, the part of the whiskey bottle, sometime almost a full bottle itself. But and occasionally you'd find a big 45 90 cartridges lying around. That's where I found the original slug of a 45 110 that I sent to a mold builder in Montana. And he constructed me a mold that would throw the same slug as the one I found in Wrath City, and that's what I shoot in my 45 110.
I'll be dang. How Wrath City was named after the guy at Dodge City, Kansas.
I'm sorry?
Wrath City was named after Mr. Wrath. Is that right?
Yes, Charles Wrath.
And he was the guy in Dodge City, Kansas that had all the.
Yes.
He had the bar and stuff there and all the. I'm assuming he was a very wealthy man.
had moved southward because all the Kansas herd had been decimated, and said he had like 30 hide wagons, and he put his compass on his saddle horn and pointed it toward Double Mountains. Wow. And then went like 17, 18 miles southeast Double Mountains and established Wrath City.
All those pioneer guys, that was only most places didn't even last a decade.
Yeah.
How long was Wrath City around?
It was there for about, from 1875 to about 1877. About
so only 2 years?
2.5 years it lasted. And they said he purchased 1,100,000 buffalo hides.
Now, how long was Dodge City relevant?
I'm not sure.
Because Deadwood City, the guy have you ever seen the show Deadwood that was on HBO or something?
A long time ago.
The guy that's the head of that, I can't remember his damn name. God dang it. Whatever the guy's name, it was the asshole that ran the town and stuff. He built like 4 different freaking hotels there. And they'd burn up, and he'd build another one. And burn up, and build, and they finally did the last one that lasted. But he ended up getting murdered, I think, in Chicago or Milwaukee and went home. But that was a tough life. Even the entrepreneurs that made all the money, it wasn't a long-lasting deal.
Yeah.
Well, we've often talked about, like, would you rather be middle class today or Rockefeller? And middle class today, it's way better. Rockefeller's son died because he got an infection. He couldn't get penicillin.
You mean middle class today or be Rockefeller back in his time?
No. You have Rockefeller's money today. Well, yes.
Yeah, I'd take Rockefeller's money today as more money than Jeff Stanfield's got.
No, you can either be middle class today or Rockefeller back then.
Back in the day. I'd rather be middle class today.
Who wouldn't take Rockefeller in today's world?
That's like someone the other day said, would you like to go back and be 14 and know what you know now, be 14, or be 45 and have $15 million in the bank? I'd rather go back and be 14 or 15 and know what I know now and do it all over again. I might do the same shit I've done right to this point. I've had a pretty fun life. But I wouldn't want to be 60 with 50. I don't want to be only get 7 years to have $15 million. I want to go back and do it all over again. I mean, you can't buy time.
That's exactly right.
I mean, wouldn't you rather be 15 all over again and do it again?
If it wasn't in today's environment.
No, I'm thinking of going back to when we were 15.
Oh, yeah. Boy,
now, you're older than me, but still go back to your time and be 15.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
That'd be cool.
But I would appreciate things a whole lot more.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And probably you some more than Jeff, because, I mean.
And when were you born?
I'm sorry?
When were you born?
1950.
Yeah, you saw a whole lot more than me.
You saw everything.
I saw lots of neat times. The late 50s. I remember the drought in the mid-50s. I remember the dust storms. I remember the great snowstorms when it broke. I remember, getting stuck, Daddy getting stuck in a pickup, and the snow would be up to the windows when he would run off the road. I remember that. And then, of course, once you get 8 and 9, that's when I got my first shotgun. I was running traps when I was about 7 or 8, 1957, 58, for skunks and raccoons, and possums and things. 60s, of course, that's what really resonates.
Do you remember the first TV that you saw? Or did y'all have one when you grew up?
Yeah, little tiny black and white, little bitty job.
Did y'all listen to the radio still when you were a kid?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember a time as divisive as what we see today?
Maybe the late 60s was similar, might parallel today, but I was busy back then.
Right.
I was involved in my hunting, college, and of course college I was trying to endure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just trying to take it one semester at a time. But I was, doing like a lot of research and stuff, and so I would see the guys, creating the issues and stuff. But I just go on past them. I drove my old Bronco, and I had to head out of town. My big deal was to get out of town and get back into the brush.
Jeff has a friend, and he said when Carter got elected, he thought the world was going to end every day.
Yeah, Carter was a loser. Yeah.
He had just got out of. Some bitch won't die either.
I know, he won't.
He was a waiter at the Last Supper, and that fucker going to be around for another 100 years. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine. He is a little older than you, probably.
Yeah.
And he went to Tech, also graduated, grew up in Abernathy, very successful guy. And he said, so it would have been 76 is when Carter got elected.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have probably been, I'm trying to think how old that would have made. That would have
when it,
26, 27, 28 years old, starting his own business and shit.
Yeah.
And said it was freaking hard. He said every day was just, he said, I just never thought I was ever going to get ahead or have anything.
Yeah.
Because he always told me, he said, as bad as it seems like it is, there's been a time that, but he said when Jimmy Carter was in, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask old Democratic farmer around here, they'll say that it was great times.
No, well, yeah.
And I don't remember.
I wasn't political back then. I just didn't pay attention to it.
And that's what's wrong with our young people today. They don't.
Right.
But it's not important when you're that age.
That's right.
Well,
now, I like the music though.
Yeah.
Y'all had
I
good
love
music.
I still love it today. You know, I listen to that stuff and I'm going, I know these guys were left-wing jobs, but they could damn sure make music.
What was your favorite group from back then?
Oh, Canned Heat was good.
Who?
Canned Heat.
Never even have heard of Canned Heat.
Canned Heat. Oh
No.
my God. Yeah, man. Look it up.
Okay, who else?
I like James Taylor, that bunch. I love the Beatles. I loved some of the what was it? Their Mick Jagger's bunch.
The Stones.
Stones. I liked some of their stuff.
About Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin was a little heavy for me. Yeah.
Mamas and Papas.
Yep. I like the Mamas and Papas.
That California Dreamin'.
Yep.
On a Northern Day. That's one of the best freaking songs ever.
Yeah.
Boy, he was a weird dude.
I like that one, San Francisco.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a cool song.
I think Janis Joplin. Me and Andy talk music a lot on here. Janis Joplin was one of the best artists ever.
She was good. She was a hardcore. She was good. She sang some good music.
She's one of Texas's top.
Yep.
Stevie Ray Vaughan the same way.
Yeah. I met a guy one time that knew her when she was in high school. I don't recall where I was, but he was from Beaumont.
Did he call her bad names?
No, she ran with his sister.
Because Jimmy Johnson, the coach of the Cowboys, that just got into football, he called her a slut and a whore in high school. They went to high school together.
Oh, really?
And she had made references to him because back before he was she died before he was ever famous.
Yeah.
And she made references about the jocks and Jimmy Johnson being an asshole and stuff on some deals. I listened to a really interesting podcast about her. She traveled with the Grateful Dead. Now, I was never a Grateful Dead fan, but I like history and I like music, so I like listening. And they went on a tour in Canada, and they did it by train. And something happened, and they had some shut down, and I don't know if it kind of sounded like the pandemic time shit we're going through right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, she was going through there, and they tricked her because she got them drunk all the time because she was into alcohol real big.
Yeah.
And so they made a bunch of brownies, or they made her a birthday cake, and they put LSD in it.
Oh, whoa.
And she got hammered on that stuff, and they laughed about it. It was a big joke between them because
that's shitty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's kind of a rotten deal.
But they stopped in Peace River, Alberta, or one of these little towns, or Prince Albert or somewhere, and they bought every bottle of whiskey they had at a liquor store there, and she got them drunk because they couldn't get drugs for up there where they were at, so they had to drink the whole time, and she drank them under the table, I guess, and they couldn't hardly perform. But once they got her back, they made a birthday cake with LSD.
Well, they did get her back.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
It's horrible, but that's the life she lived.
She OD'd, didn't she?
She died and throw up.
Did.
Oh, she asphyxiated.
Her and
No, that's Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
I thought she did too.
She died of a heroin overdose.
Oh, what Jim Morrison die from? He threw up too.
Jim Morrison, he died in France, in Paris, I believe. And I've seen that show a couple of times. It seemed like he died of an overdose. I'm not sure.
Another weird cat.
He was a really weird cat. I mean, he was like one of these guys that I wouldn't like to be around.
Judy Garland, same way.
Really, I didn't know that.
She died on the toilet.
Kind of like Elvis Presley.
From barbiturates. There's 3 people that have died on the toilet: Elvis Presley, Judy Garland, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce.
All 3 died on the toilet.
Damn.
Whatever happened to? I guess Elvis, the medicine he was on had constipated him.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. And then
It was called peanut butter and banana sandwiches and a bunch of barbiturates and everything else. He would travel from Memphis to L.A. and go to Hollywood, the studios there, to do stuff. And he would travel at night. Yeah. Because he didn't want to be seen by people.
I have so much respect for Elvis Presley's his talent.
Oh, what a
That guy had a voice that I mean, it went across all the spectrums. I mean, it covered everything, from soul to religious to rock and roll. You name it, Elvis Presley could do it.
he was the king.
He was the king.
And he would travel at night, and they would stay at hotels, and they would take foil and put on the windows of hotels.
Yeah.
And then he had a VCR VHS
Yeah.
before anybody else did.
Really.
And he would watch TV shows and movies and shit that they had
Yeah.
the companies would give to Paramount or whoever.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would travel at night. And they
Wow.
said he always took care of everyone around him.
Yeah, I heard
Big
that.
tipper,
Yeah.
took care of everybody. I've read a couple of books on him.
Yeah.
One of his ex-managers, road managers, wrote a book.
Uh-huh.
It's probably the best book I've read from someone. Van Halen's got a book out that was really good too,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows the underneath part of how that business all works and stuff. But Elvis was a really interesting dude. But he was, his own worst enemy was himself.
Do you know where were you guys when you heard he died?
I was Andy was not even here.
I don't even know if my dad. I don't even know if my dad was born.
I was 6 years old
Yeah.
or 7 years old, and we had a babysitter.
Yeah.
And me and Tony were at the babysitters. It was in 77.
77.
Then I was 9,
Oh, did I?
and I remember my mom come to pick us up, and she was crying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What's wrong?" Elvis died.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
I was just out of college 3 years, and I was east of Knox City appraising crops. And I can take you to almost to the exact spot on the south side of a shelter belt. Driving my Datsun pickup, listening to the radio, and it said, "This is Bulletin. Elvis Presley has died."
When they broke in back then, it was some serious shit too.
Yeah.
Sky's falling.
Everybody,
If they
when that
break in.
shit happened, if they broke into the news,
Yeah.
I mean a TV show, because there's only 3 channels or the radio, you knew some shit was going down. It wasn't to tell you that there was a severe thunderstorm watch or something. It was some serious shit.
Did you ever see him perform in concert?
I did not.
Never
No,
did.
I didn't.
My grandparents. So this is a funny story. My aunt. I don't know how old. So my dad was born in 68. My aunt was probably born in 71. Anyway, so she was probably 7 or 8. My grandparents were going to go watch Elvis in Abilene or wherever. And my aunt was pleading with them, take me. And they said, no, next time he's in town, we'll buy tickets for the whole family and we'll all go. He died right after he
my
was there.
goodness.
And my aunt still, to this day, if Elvis Presley gets brought up at a family dinner,
yeah.
she is quick to remind them
Yeah.
that they cheated her out of her shot at
Yeah.
seeing Elvis Presley live in concert because they said, we'll take you the next time. Well,
Yeah.
the next time never
made it.
came.
Never
I was helping a buddy of mine in Wichita Falls move some stuff at his mom's. His mom had passed away. He was moving stuff out of her house, and she had a box in there, and it had a contract for Elvis signed to play at the God dang, what's the name of that corral place in Wichita Falls? Son of a bitch. It's not the OK Corral, but it was some BK Corral or something. Used to be over by the base.
Yeah.
And he performed there, and they paid him $350 for the night. I read the contract,
goodness. My
1950s.
goodness.
I was like, "What are you going to do with this?" I don't know. I said, "If you're going to throw this shit away, I'd like to have that."
Yeah.
I said, "I'd like to put it under." I said, "I'm not going to sell it. I'd like to have it and put it on the wall." So it's an
Yes.
interesting piece of deal. But that was pretty. The BK Corral was the name of that place.
1956 he played there, April 9th.
At BK
Wow.
Corral.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I'm trying to read, but that's what it says. He was in Wichita Falls, April 9th, 1956.
Wow.
Did where were you when John F. Kennedy died?
Yeah, I was in gym class.
In gym class.
And Johnny Hudson, who was the coach at the time, John Tom Hudson, who incidentally was one of the good players for Don Haskins at the time when Don Haskins was coaching in Benjamin in the 50s. He came back and was Johnny Tom coach at Benjamin. Gosh, back in the whenever that was
Was
early
he
60s.
kin to Danny Mac?
Yeah, his brother.
Okay, I've met him before.
Yeah. And he said, "All right, everybody up on stage." And he said, "I've got some bad news." He said, President Kennedy's just been shot. I'll never forget it. Everybody started crying.
My dad was in Hyannis, Alliance, Nebraska. Hyannis was where the Kennedys from, Alliance, Nebraska. So he walked into a place and everybody like, "Ron, did you shoot the president?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" He was selling post up there for my grandpa. And
Wow.
kids are different today. And my dad was 18 years old and could have played football at the University of Nebraska on a full scholarship and decided to drive a truck for my grandfather
Good gracious.
and drove 18 years old all over 3-4 days at a time and sell post. Can you imagine 18-year-old kids today doing that shit?
No. No.
And nobody thought nothing of it.
No.
No cell phones. No.
Uh-uh.
You know, where's Ron?
Kids, I worry. I worry. I mean, my boys, you know, I let them be boys, and I didn't insist that they learn about the computer and everything. Of course, they had their cell phones and all. But I see a lot of young people today that I fear for our future.
No life skills.
No life skills
At all.
If you turn them out here in the brush, what are they going to do?
Be
Take
calling
away
on their phone?
Well, no, take away their
Oh,
phone.
they're fucked.
It's over.
Well, I've talked about this, and I'll see if I can pull it up real quick. I can just give you the gist of it. There's a quote going around that said, I worry about when we give our children cell phones, I worry about that we steal their boredom. Because as a result, we're going to have a generation of kids that will not pick up a guitar and learn how to play music. There will be no Wyman Meinzer that just gets a camera and starts fiddling around on it. There's not going to be any more a great poet because no kids are not bored anymore. There's always something going on.
Entertainment all the time.
And I mean, you can probably think back to when you first started. I mean, there were probably times you had nothing better to do than to get good on a camera.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was a kid growing up. I mean, out there on the ranch, you know, my brother and I, if we didn't have a lot of like trucks and things. You have kids, you know, you go get your little dump truck. We would take part of a carburetor and somehow work a 16-penny nail in it for a gun barrel and play like it was an army tank. We'd play in the sewer down there where Mom was the brown water out of the washing machine, not the washing machine, but out of when she washed dishes. And we'd build dams, and that's where we'd play. Or we'd dam up a little draw that was about 2 inches wide down the road, turn on the water faucet, and play like red ants were people trying to cross the river.
You had an imagination.
And the river washed them away.
Right.
You had an imagination.
And we'd sit there and scream, you know, oh, God, we're drowning. You know, and the red ants go tumbling down the draw. You know, that's the way we grew up, and that's where I let my boys, you know, set traps and trusted them just to go out and do what they do as little boys do.
I grew up in a neighborhood, and it was right by the country. So I'm not a country boy, but I am a country boy. And we used to do, when it rained, we used to have stick races. Now, when I say stick, I meant straw or something just in the deal. And it was because the curb was there. And you'd look up, and you'd walk a quarter of a mile, and there'd be 4 of us, and we're having watch them run in the ditches, just the deal. You weren't bored. My grandkids were at the house the other day. Judge, we're bored. We're bored. Yeah. What do you mean you're freaking bored? You got TV, you got iPads, and you're bored? Yeah. We're just, can you take us to Dollar General so we can buy something else to be bored with?
Oh, my
When I was a kid, I never said I was bored because someone would find something you didn't want to do.
Oh, absolutely. What I remember frequently, my brother and I would be walking down to the tank, and if we got bored, we got in a rock fight.
Yes.
I mean, not clods. We're talking about rocks as big as golf balls.
Yeah. That don't bust on.
And I mean, we would chunk rocks at each other like just howl at you, boom, boom, back and forth. Finally, our arms would give out, and then we'd take off to the tank, walking.
Yeah. My dad told me he threw his arm out throwing corn cobs at each other. They had corn cob fights in Kansas growing up. But we did. I lived in the country, or right on the edge of the country, but I had a fishing pole I could walk. Yeah. I mowed yards. When I was 8, 9, and 10 years old, I had 10, 15 yards I mowed every week. Yeah. And I charged $5 to mow, $10 to mow a front to backyard. And I was 8 years old walking down the street with a lawnmower and a gallon. Remember those metal gallon cans of gas that you get paint thinner in now? Those are gas cans. And my mom would drive me to the grocery store, and I'd buy 47 cents worth of freaking gas or whatever a gallon of gas was, and I'd mow yards. And when I'd run out, she'd drive me again. You see a kid walking down the street with a gas can now, people would be calling the cops on you.
Oftentimes, my brother and I would get bored on a summer day, and we'd get a siphoning hose that Daddy always kept behind the seat of the pickup, and we'd siphon out about a quart of gasoline and go burn red ant middens.
Yeah.
Throw it on there and throw a match on.
Did you ever use
about little bitty kids?
Did you use magnifying glass ever on them too?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And or get a little of this. You're talking about dangerous. Propane.
Oh shit.
Take an oil can, cut the top out, take the propane, and then dribble it in till it was full. Just sitting there, just boiling, and then go to the ant midden and drop it and play like it was bombs. You're dropping on the ants. Of course, they'd freeze instantly.
Yeah.
We did that.
Jeez.
So we don't
That
have
is dangerous.
we don't have red ant
Don't do
problems.
that now.
That is dangerous.
That's why we don't have no ants in Knox County anymore. Y'all killed all of them.
But so I'm guilty. I don't give my kid. My kid does not get. He didn't get an iPad or any of that. But I mean, it's just.
He uses them at our house.
I'm not there to Jeff. You're the parent when he's at your house. So like, what do you want me to do here? At our house, he does not get the benefit of sitting on an iPad all day. Now, he's not. I mean, he's scared of his own shadow. So like, he does not leave our side very much. But it's just it. I get it as parents because it's easy. Give them an iPad and they're out of your hair.
They're out of your hair. That's right.
But you're going to be raising those kids. We were in Mexico last week. Listen to this shit. So I'm sitting there, and Michelle and them were still at the restaurant, and I walked outside to sit by. I need to walk for a minute, so I went and walked, and I sat down at the deal and waited for them to come up. And there was a couple in front of me, and and they were an older couple. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say older couple, they were in their mid-50s, and they've got this kid that's probably 8 to 10 years old.
Yeah.
They were old to be having a kid that age, is what I mean. And this mom and this kid are arguing. They had a kids camp there on one side of this resort, and that's where he had been at. And he starts jumping on his dad's ass and arguing with his dad. Everyone that's got a kid, you've had a time in your life where you've argued with your kid.
Of course.
It might be a quick argument, but any parent out there that said they've never had an argument with their kid is a liar, because kids are going to argue, and you just don't knock their teeth out for arguing all the time.
Right.
But there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
This kid, his dad said no to whatever the hell they were doing. This kid takes a bottled water, and it was like a quart bottle of water, and throws it at his freaking dad. Then has a deal of Pringles, a full can of Pringles, and throws that at his dad too.
Wow.
The kid looks back at me, and I looked at him and I said, "Boy, if I was your dad, I'd beat your fucking ass." And that's what I told him.
Said
yes,
that?
right there to his face. He kind of looked at me, and his dad walked and picked the shit up, which I wouldn't have done. First of all, little Johnny would have been on the ground, and then his ass would have crawled over and picked that shit up, and maybe got my foot pulled out of his ass during his doing it. The dad walked back by me with this stuff. The mom and the kid walked the other way. The dad walked by me and got right in front of me, and I said, "Sir," I said, "if you don't start whipping his ass pretty soon," I said, "you're going to be paying for that kid the rest of your life."
What did he say?
He didn't say shit. He shrugged his shoulders and walked off. But I thought, I'm telling you, first of all, I would have been so embarrassed for my kid to do that.
Oh, sure.
That'd been the first part.
Sure.
But then I might have got arrested for beating his ass, because I would have beat his ass.
Yeah,
but I
today
couldn't
you
believe
would,
it. That kid just kind of looked at me. And
wow.
I mean, I'm telling you, if it would have been him doing that to his mom and there wouldn't have been a dad there, I probably would have grabbed him by his freaking head.
Yeah.
Just because that would have just probably what I would have done.
That's just preposterous.
But the dad didn't do shit. Yeah. And then when I told the dad, straight to his face, if you don't start beating it, and I'm not a parenting expert, I promise you.
Yeah.
I got 3 boys, and we got all kinds of stories of shit, but they never done nothing like that.
Yeah.
But they're all 3 functioning parts of society, and they're an asset to the world right now.
Right.
But I told him, I said, if you don't whip his ass now, you're going to be, because that kid's not going to get any better.
It's real funny. Both my boys are real productive young men.
Yes, they are.
Real productive and good businessmen, and they respect people who respect them.
Yeah.
Did you know that I quit whipping those boys real early? And I would send them upstairs to the bedroom, which was in the which used to be the men's cell room. And I'd say, "You boys stay up there until I tell you to come down." And they would beg me to spank them.
Really?
I'd say, no, you stay right up there until I tell you to come down. It may be 2 or 3 hours.
They want that instant, so it's over with.
It's and the reason being, I remember one time, the last time I spanked them, they had a house cat, and they grabbed him by the tail and they swung him around. I looked out in the yard and they swung him around, like they
Yeah.
Well, oh man, no, don't do that. And so I come in, I laid him on my lap, and I paddled him. I'm going, I feel like a bully doing this. Little bitty guys, little butts about the size of apples. Mm-hmm. And so I just started sending them upstairs. And they would come down and beg me to spank them. "Daddy, please whip us so we can come down." I said, "No, y'all stay right up there in that daggum room till I tell you to come down." So they spent a lot of time behind bars in that bedroom.
But it was discipline.
He was disciplined.
And this kid here is not getting
Always
any discipline.
And I would not let them be obnoxious whenever people were around. I can't stand that.
Oh,
Yes.
Is to be a bunch of adults be sitting around and kids just going crazy, screaming and running up and wanting attention. I'm just going, get a grip on the kid.
Yeah.
Kids supposed to be
shut it
seen, not
down.
heard.
That's right. My boys, that's the way I handle them. You guys be quiet, sit over there and behave and show that you have some manners.
Yep.
And it shows today.
There's a gentleman named Dr. Peterson, and you should look him up on YouTube. He's brilliant. But he said, your kid has to be somebody that adults want to be around, because
Yes.
adults have all the information. So if you want your kid to get ahead in life, make him appealing to an adult that knows something
Absolutely.
that might teach him something. Because if he's an obnoxious little animal,
Yeah.
no adult's going to want to be around him.
That's right.
Therefore, no adult's going to teach him anything.
I remember one time being in Dallas. I forgot whose home I was in, and I walked in, and this kid, their child, was sitting in front of the computer or the TV, and they said, "So-and-so, this is Mr. Meinzer," and he just kind of looked at me like that, nodded his head, and just kept staring at me. I'm going, "Wow, wow, we're talking about spiraling in life. He's starting early. He's stalling out right now."
But I do. I look at kids. So we went to graduation here. All the boys slunched over, bad posture, thinking, I didn't graduate that long ago. I graduated in 2006. And, I mean, every boy walked up upright. His chest was showing.
Yeah.
But all these kids, all these 18-year-old kids that are about to go conquer the world and chase down their dreams, every one of them walked down the aisle slunched over like this. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. They had their caps pulled down real low. You couldn't see their eyes because they got these mullets now that cover their eyes. And I'm just thinking, kid, it ain't gonna get any better. Like, you need to stand up, put your shoulders back,
be proud,
and walk down the aisle and show a little bit of pride. Don't slunch over, because I get a lot off body posture and everything like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're not living in reality when it comes to kids, because in the country, kids are still more what they're supposed to be, like how we were, compared to the city. And I get a lot of resumes for young men wanting jobs, and they're all country kids. They hunt. They like to hunt and stuff. Most of them are pretty good kids. I've had some real jackasses come through here, but most of them are pretty good kids. They just need an education and someone to guide them. But when you get to the big cities, those kids aren't used to being told no. And they're used to their parents defending them on everything wrong. You don't learn if every time you do something wrong, someone defends you. I mean, I learn something new every day. And if you screw something up, I screwed something. I know I screwed something up today. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
But the way I learn is getting it corrected.
Yeah.
And maybe it's my wife that tells me I screwed something up. That happens a whole lot. A lot of times I'm not wrong, but it's just better to say okay.
Of course.
But Andy, Tony, whoever it is, someone around me, if they say, "Hey, Jeff, this is wrong, you need to fix something," or blah, blah, blah. I did too. I screwed up a minute ago. I sent a guy a invoice, and I put the wrong amount on the due, and he messaged me back. Well, I know that. Tomorrow when I do invoices, I will look to make sure that, it's correction. Well, these young people, they don't get corrected at all. If they screw up at school, mom and dad defend them.
But
you
it's
always,
not whenever I grew up.
No.
Golly, boy, if you got it, I don't care. And I know there were times that I was in the right. But as far as daddy and mama was concerned, people at school were right.
Oh, it don't matter.
Teachers were right.
Yep. My first ass whipping was at Zundelowicz Junior High School in Wichita Falls in 7th grade. I never got a spanking in elementary. I was smart enough to know when I could get by with shit. I was the worst kid in the class when it come to talking and being loud, but I made really good grades. But I knew when to stop. Well, when I got to Zundy, somebody wrote a bunch of dirty words in a book one time. Well, we were assigned a book, and it was on my desk. Well, I didn't write them in there. I didn't even know they were in there. They called me in there and said, "That's your book." "Yeah, that's my book." "Well, you wrote this stuff in there." "I didn't do that." To this day, I didn't write that shit.
This is the hill Jeff's going to die on.
But Jeff Huddleston, who I graduated, his dad, Mr. Huddleston, whipped my ass for something I didn't do. And I'll never forget that. I got in trouble when I got home.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't do me any good to say I didn't do it because I already got my ass whooped at school.
It was coming.
So you know what I did? I admitted I did it just to get it over with.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
If my dad was alive today, I would tell him I didn't do that shit.
Did he whoop you?
Oh, I got in trouble. No, I didn't get spankings. That was, I'd already had my last spanking about that.
Yeah.
But my dad was a big man when I was younger.
Yeah.
And my dad, one time, I got a spanking when I was not at school. I got one of these video football games when they first come out.
Yeah.
And I was about the same time frame, that same year, I think. And I was told, it was for my birthday, but I was told that I could not take it to school. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think I did the first morning? I took that son of a bitch to school.
Yeah.
Well, my mom told my dad. I'm still pissed at my mom about this because she should have handled it herself.
Yeah.
She delegated it to my dad.
Oh, my. Well, that was horrible.
And he goes, you're going to get a spanking. And I hadn't had a spanking in a couple of years.
It was whoopings.
Oh, that's exactly what it was, too.
Whoopings.
And he held me down with one hand, and he beat my ass with his other hand. And I still remember how much it hurt. And I told my buddies at school about it. And one of my buddies goes, shoot, my dad do that. I'd just beat up and whip his butt.
Oh.
Well, sir, you've never met my dad.
Yeah.
My dad's arms were bigger than my legs. I'm not going to beat his ass. I didn't even think about it. I never, ever even thought something like that.
Yeah.
But I remembered that.
Oh, absolutely.
That was my last spanking. I just got in trouble at school, but I had to admit I did it just because, okay, I did it.
The most dreaded phrase from my mother was, I'm going to tell you daddy when he gets home. Mm-hmm. We got a whooping every day.
Is your mom supposed to be your buddy?
Yeah. Mama whooped my brother and I every day.
Yeah, me and Tony had that too.
When we got up in the morning, it was like, I wonder if we're going to get one. It's when are we going to get one today? But if we got too rambunctious, she'd go, I'm going to tell you daddy when you get him. Whoa.
Right.
That happened about once every 6 months. And then he would say, go in and get the whooping belt. And we'd go in the closet, step in there, open that door. I can see it right now. That long belt hanging there, and you'd pull it off and walk in there. He'd close the door, and whoever was getting the first whipping, the other one would be laying over on the bed just screaming because it was so horrible looking. He'd grab you by one arm, and he'd get that belt, and he'd just go in a circle with you, just whooping you.
That's exactly right, in a circle, because you're trying to walk away.
And you're jumping, and he's whooping you, and then he'd let you go, and you'd fall over in the corner bawling, and he'd reach and grab the other one. Mm-hmm. You did not want that very often.
No. And you know what? Your childhood and my childhood are the same. We lost something in generations because we're born in different generations, but we had the same discipline.
Yes.
Yes. But you go do that today. First of all, there ain't no kid going to go walk to go get a belt. We were either stupid or we were scared to death because I did the same thing. My mom, it was a paddle. She had a paddle and it sat on a deal. We had a toy room where me and Tony had all of our shit in there.
Yeah.
Well, and that was, if it rained and stuff and we couldn't play outside, we had everything you needed. We had Legos, electric train, cars, but we never played inside unless it was dark or it was rain or cold. In the wintertime, we might some.
Yeah.
But we had a barn out back. We had chemistry. I mean, we had a good childhood on that shit. But when my mom and me and Tony got spankings every day, every single day also. Yeah. And she would be like, go get the paddle, the board. And we'd go in there and she'd beat us. I'll never forget, I was playing about 6th grade and she went to hit me with that. And I put my hand to block it and it broke in two. Yeah. And she, I'm telling your dad, blah, blah, blah. And, and she'd cry to my dad all the time. I don't know what's wrong with these. All they do is fight all the time. He'd be like, Christine, they're boys. They're supposed to fight. Yeah. Because we fought every day. Yeah. Did y'all fight every day too?
Oh, we fussed a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we fought every day. We get in a fight over something. Yeah. Now, I didn't want nobody else to touch my brother. Yeah, yeah. But by God, we were going to fight every single day about something. Yeah. One year we got boxing gloves for Christmas, and I was probably 9 and Tony was 7. Yeah. And I used to knock his ass out about 4 or 5 times a day. I mean, I'd ring his freaking bell, boy. I mean, drop him, had to get water, and I'd have to go get water and wash. My mom come in one time, and I was waking him up from knocking him out. Yeah. That was the end of the boxing gloves. Yeah. She was pissed at my dad.
Mother whipped us with anything she could pick out. His fly swatters.
Switches were the worst.
Switches, a piece, just a board laid out on the ground. I remember one time I run outside. She said, I'm going to whoop you, and I run outside. There's a board laying on the ground, and I went, that's what she's going to whip me with. I grabbed, threw it on top of the house because it's cedar shingles. Here it came back down, sliding. Slid, fell down in front of me, and I grabbed it, threw it back up on the house, come sliding back down, and when it hit the ground, she walked out the door and picked it up and beat the piss out of me. Yeah.
Switches were the worst.
Yeah, they hurt, man.
My grandpa had a willow tree at his house, and my grandpa
wow.
even whipped my ass a few times when when he was on vacation up there.
Yeah.
And go get a switch.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna go get no switch. He'll beat me with it, and he would. He'd beat your ass. But you know what's funny is kids today don't get spankings much. But I was talking to a black lady on the airplane or at the airport, and she was talking about she whips her grandkids' ass.
Yeah.
I said, we need more of that. She goes, I'm tell you right, my house. She goes, we ain't doing anything different than when I was raised. She goes, it's good enough for me to get my ass whooped when I was little. It's good enough for me to whip my grandkids' ass.
Yep.
I said, ma'am, we need more of that in that world.
That's right. I fully agree.
Do you remember when your last whooping was? Do you remember like how old you might have been?
You know, I don't. I really don't. My brother does. He remembers his because he said that mother. I forgot what he did, but he came in and mother said, "I'm going to whip you," and she grabbed a belt and reared back, and he grabbed her by the arm, like that, and just said, "No more." And
no
she
more.
Said, she turned to my sister and said, "Call the sheriff."
Did your dad find out?
You know, probably he realized it was time to stop.
It was time to stop.
He's probably 16,
Right.
like that.
I saw Rick the other day at John's Auto.
Yeah, Rick's doing well.
Because I mean I've got a 6-year-old and I got a 3-year-old. So I mean it's just the 3-year-old gets a lot more spankings.
He doesn't mind very well.
Than but that's what I'm saying. I never had to whoop the 6-year-old. I'm giving the 3-year-old a whooping almost between me and his mother.
Yeah.
He's getting one almost every day, and it's just like, what the hell is going on here?
Reese will never see me in an official capacity as the judge in Knox City, but there's a damn good chance Jameson, if I'm still judge in 10 years, is going to be seeing me for something. He's a little
He's got a
shithead
streak
sometimes,
in
but
him,
big time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's bad is I think when we whip the 3-year-old, the 6-year-old is more affected because he is, Daddy, please don't hit him. Please don't hit him,
Yeah.
Mama, he didn't mean it.
Yeah,
And
he's got a big heart.
he's
He's got a
pleading with
big
his
heart.
brother, like, stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna get
Yeah,
hit.
he has got a lot of. He's going to really get hurt in life some because he's got a good heart.
Probably so.
But he's going to be. He would probably going to make a good preacher.
And that's
because
what
he's a good-hearted kid.
That's great.
All the way to the core.
But that breaks my heart because I know how big of a heart he's got, and it's just like, kid, because you know, I still lay in bed with either me or my wife. We alternate kids. We put him to bed at night, and I talk to him, and he's got such a good heart, and it's just like, you're gonna have to protect that, and you're gonna have to man up. Might not be the right
Have a
word.
little tough streak in you.
Yeah, you're
Have a
gonna
little
have
bit of a
you're gonna have
tough
to figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's just like he says things, and I'm like, you're gonna get devastated.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. I don't know if there's anything I can do.
You can't. It's his
to fix it.
It's his inner spirit. He's just a good-hearted kid. He's like talking to a 30-year-old man.
Yeah.
And he's 6.
Yeah.
He's very literal about everything.
Yeah.
And I bullshit him a lot. Which I bullshit everybody. But my grandkids, I bullshit. I got stories.
Yeah.
I try to scare them. I don't let them win at anything. And I make them compete all the time on stuff. Because I think competition is great.
Oh, it is.
And Michelle gets mad. Why does everything got to be a competition? Because they get him and Dylan, his cousin, and she's a girl and he's a boy, and they fight a lot about shit. Or not fight. And I get them competing against stuff. Well, I think competition's good for you.
It is.
And so I do a lot of that. And he's very competitive, but he's very, 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 very smart. I think he'll be a very successful person, but he is going to get his heart broken in life because he's going to find out that there's a lot of shitheads in the world.
There are a lot of real turd heads.
And I don't know what to do to expose him to those turd heads either.
He's just going to have to get out there and mix it with them.
He's raised at a freaking hunting lodge. You can't be. I
Well,
mean, that a lot of that will take place in the environment he's around.
Sure.
He will learn that.
But he's the cute little blonde with blue eyes out here. So, I mean, he's not going to get a turd head out here.
Well, he will when he gets to be 12 or 13 and he starts helping guiding hunts. And
Right.
he sees the shit in life. You'd be surprised. Kids can do their own. The thing is, you've got to expose him to stuff. These people that send these kids, especially girls, and I've got a friend of mine. Their daughter is 16, 17 years old. She's fixed to go off to college. Very smart kid. And I worry because she's a really good girl, a good girl. But I worry about her
Big
getting
heart.
exposed because she's going to be around some 25-year-old guy that's drinking a 30-pack of Natty Light every night. That's going to school and taking the same classes that she is because he's an underachiever.
Yeah,
And-
I
and-
knew a few of those attacked.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a lot of fun when I was younger too. And freshman girls are a lot of fun when you're 22, 23, 24 years old. But their parents, when they're 18 years old and they drop them off at college, they don't think, hey, you know, little Susie here is going to end up at a bar tonight with guys buying her drinks that
I'm glad I didn't have a daughter.
No,
me too.
It'd be terrible. But that's what happens. And so if you don't expose them to stuff, they don't know any better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a fine line because you can expose them to too much shit. And that happens real quick.
Yeah.
We talked about the spankings and stuff in school.
Well, and another thing that I think grew people up in the late 1800s, a lot of those kids were orphans.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was just a harder bunch of people back then.
Yeah.
And kids grew up so early. You know, it's like a friend of mine, Earl Nottingham's father, like great-grandfather, and they come from Virginia, and he got in a fight one day and stabbed a boy, and came home, told his dad. He said, and he's like, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And he said, Daddy, I killed old so-and-so today in school over a dog or something. His daddy gave him a Colt 45 and said, go to Texas.
Wow.
And he took that 45, and I have held that 45 in my hand. And you open the cylinder, and it's got Nottingham. At night, he would inscribe Nottingham on between the cartridge where you slide the cartridges in. And I've shot that gun, and I've loaded ammunition for it. It's got a 4-inch barrel. It's Colt 45, peacemaker, and my buddy Earl, he still has that thing. But that's how he got to Texas by himself at like age 14.
But
wow.
We didn't have class discrepancy wouldn't be the victimization of class back then.
Yeah.
If you were born rich, you were born rich. Poor people weren't hating you because you were. They weren't like, well, you owe me this because you've got that.
I'd like to be like you.
Yes. People accepted where they started out at.
Yes.
Even it's TV and in any show is the same, but you watch it and it's not historically correct all the time.
No.
But me and Michelle watched a series called Downton Abbey. It's a 6-season deal, and it's about England in the 1920s to 19.
Linda may be watching.
I'm sure she is. It's a chick movie and a half. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but I couldn't. We watched all 6 seasons over the summertime. We started in early June. Yeah. Loved it, and it's a great series. But it shows people just accepted. You're a chambermaid. Okay, well that's what you are.
Yeah.
And you can either try to work to not be a chambermaid, or you can just accept your life as a chambermaid. Be happy in life, and it wasn't. They didn't hate the people they worked for because they were wealthy.
Yeah,
it was just the way life was,
and
it was that way back then. So you picked up your shit and you went on down the road and you tried to make the most of it. Mm-hmm. Well, nowadays people can't do that because they always worry about what someone else has that they don't have. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're so soft as a society now.
Becoming really watered down.
I see on Facebook all the time people, boy, I sure would like to have a steak tonight. Mm-hmm. But I don't have money. It'd sure be nice if someone would buy me a steak or something. I see that shit all the time.
Oh, that's bad.
People want someone to buy them a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. They think it's socially accepted to get on Facebook and ask for that. And that's not the way society works.
That's not the way it works.
And this is what kills me because I'm not a good Christian. Andy's a good Christian. I'm not going to walk across. I'm not going to walk across the street.
Are you, Andy?
Yes. A lot better than I am.
Maybe better than Jeff, but I've still got a lot of you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I believe in God. I know Jesus died for my sins.
Yes.
But I'm not going to walk across the yard to save you. If your ass wants to go to hell, you knock yourself out.
Right.
Heaven's awful crowded anyways. So that makes me a really bad Christian. Now, if you want to help yourself, I'll do everything I can to help you.
Absolutely, I agree.
But if you don't want help, I'm not going to help you. But when you get on Facebook and you say, well, Jesus provides for me, but I sure would like to have this and that, I don't think Jesus wants you to do that. I think Jesus wants you to provide for yourself.
He meant for you to take up for yourself and work.
Yes.
And then he would maybe present you with opportunities, but you got to show that you're willing to go for it. Go for the goal.
And I got in trouble with my mom the other day because I made a comment that I made a post and it said, I think Jesus would be more happy if you got a job and paid 10% to the church than to quit asking people for stuff on Facebook all the time.
You wrote that on somebody's post?
I wrote that on my post.
But
Wyman, we're a lot alike.
Yeah.
We don't get our feelings hurt over the truth. That's the truth.
Right.
A lot of people liked it. I got a lot of messages. My preacher sent me a message on this.
Oh no.
I don't think he was against me.
He wasn't for you either, though.
I think he was. I just don't want to call him out on here because he listens to this and he'll message me about this. But what I said was right. Yeah. I don't go to church all the time, but I do give when I go to church. Yeah. And I try to do stuff for our church and for people. I give a lot to try to help people a lot. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I'm asking too much to ask you to help for yourself.
No, you're not asking too much.
But Facebook's not a damn advertising spot to sit on your ass at home and not do nothing.
And ask for things. No,
you know, I wish to hell I could buy about 10,000 acres of the 4 Sixes Ranch.
No more, wouldn't that be sweet?
So I'm going to get on here tonight and I'm going to say, I'm taking, and you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get zero back, and that's the way it should be.
That's right.
You know, I don't know where we've gotten where it's acceptable to just ask for shit all the time.
I agree.
And speaking of that, you were 100% right last time you were on about that old place selling.
Well, he knew it. He had the inside information.
I know he knew it because
did you sell that ranch?
No, my broker.
That would have been a good commission, huh?
Yes, it would have. It would have been good, real good.
How much was it? $360 million so far?
No, I think 325. I think.
So 10% would be 30. The commission would be about $15 million.
It's more like 6%.
6%.
Yeah,
well,
but they have to split it with another broker.
Well, 10% would have been $32 million. I was trying to do it in half and add a little bit to it, but I said $15 million. Yeah. It was a nice payday.
It's going to be. It's going to be.
Still not final.
That something like that takes.
Oh,
they don't just go write a check and go down the bank and do it in one day. Usually,
Linda and I, sell 300 acres. Mm-hmm. It's not overnight.
Right.
It'll take 30 days, 60 days, to close that.
If he's got, because he didn't have $320 million in cash capital in the bank, probably. Well, I don't know the guy. Think so. That's a lot of cash. Most of them guys have got that invested somewhere, and they're going to go put down $50 million and do this. Exactly right.
He's got investors.
So, can you tell us this? Are they fixing to start filming the 4 Sixes out there now?
I'm assuming they will whenever it closes.
That's when they'll start filming it.
I'm assuming.
And now they're doing.
Not heard exactly.
Is it the new one going to be called 1811?
I think
that I don't.
There
know.
Was something I just saw.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, who dumped me for Tim McGraw. Just so everybody in history knows that we dated a couple times. So I'm still kind of pissed off about that. So I'm not a big fan of Tim McGraw's at all. And
I can't believe this shit.
And at half the shit, that was a shake my head.
It's a time in my life I don't like to think about much anymore. But
yeah, why would you?
Yeah, well, she dumped me for some guy that could sing. Mm-hmm. Anyways, 2 liberal hacks like him going to play Texas in 1811.
Yeah,
just.
I don't even like to watch these shows today. I mean, Celinda, she'll watch those like you're talking about, the one about England and stuff. When I look at these actors, for the most part, I know they're liberals, and it just pisses me off. And so, if I've got time, and I'm going to take time to go watch the tube, I go in, and I'll go on YouTube or something, and I'll watch World War II documentaries.
Oh, I like those. I like all of those.
That's what those are my heroes.
Now, John Wayne was a real American.
Yeah, John Wayne. He was a nice guy and everything, but he's always beating the crap out of everybody. And that's not life. You don't.
A little bit of that goes a long way.
I'm sorry.
A little bit of that goes a long way.
Yeah, it goes a long way. But I'm telling you, I find a Medal of Honor recipient or something, and I watch that, and I go, wow.
Those are tough guys.
Wow.
Why don't Hollywood make a movie about Audie Murphy?
I don't know.
I mean, there's a guy that was most decorated man in World War II.
Yeah.
Here it is.
I guess he's buried.
Faith Hill and Tim McGraw will star in prequel. In August 21, it was announced that country music. Faith Hill will be starring in 1883 as James and Margaret Dutton, and I think it's going to be on the Sixes. If I can scroll down.
No, I don't think this is going to be on the Sixes. No, the Sixes is going to be called the 4 Sixes. This is going to be a third movie off of this.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, this 18.
Paramount has also announced show will be getting a spinoff, which is currently operating under the working title of 4 Sixes. Yeah,
there it is, right there.
When the Comanches still ruled West Texas, no ranch America is more steep in the history of the West, and 666 is still competing as it did. It's going to be interesting. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what Indians they're playing. Are they playing the real Indians? Or are they playing TV Indians? Because if they really portrayed it the way it is, I don't think they'll like it for TV. And they got 3 freaking liberals: Sam Elliott, Tim.
I
cannot. It just makes me sick.
Yeah. The worst one to me is Kevin Costner on Yellowstone.
Oh, I know.
Because he plays a real man's man. He plays the guy that lives out here. Now we don't have any guys rich like that are flying helicopters around
Or shooting people.
but the real West Texas type guy, cowboy rugged that don't put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
That's who he plays, and he's freaking daisy picking pansy.
I didn't know Sam Elliott was.
Yes, and I didn't know that a few months ago.
He played an ERP. I mean,
Yeah.
he's any character he plays, he's a man's
That's
character.
Right. Yeah.
Every man in Hollywood, just about,
Has to sell out.
A lot of them do now. Clint Eastwood, I still like Clint Eastwood. He's got a new movie coming out. He's 107 years old and he's got a show coming out. But he's it's going to be out next week, I think. I just saw it. Previous brand new one.
Yeah.
But but he's from the old school stuff
Yes,
still.
yes.
I mean, Jesus Christ, was he in the Dirty Dozen?
I'm not sure.
He's been around since the early 60s.
Oh,
Outlaw
yeah,
Josie
yeah.
Wells, great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. I love that Indian guy in
I'm
there
the
too.
Dirty Harry guy. I love
Dirty Harry's great stuff
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
When he gets pours all that sugar in the coffee and then shoots the shit them dudes in that cafe.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's but I like Clint Eastwood still. But and then there's
91.
He's
91
and still
Born in
making movies.
1930 in San Francisco.
I remember back in the 60s or maybe even the late 50s. He was on Rawhide.
Yep.
It's crazy. You look. So he was married in 53, divorced in 84. That's 30 years with somebody like that's
remarkable.
pretty good.
Yeah.
When did he marry the chick that was in all those movies with him, Lockley or whatever her name was? What was this girlfriend or live-in?
That was just a partner, Sandra Locke.
Sandra Locke was married to her.
They were together 75 to 89. So I mean that's
his.
That's a long relationship.
Do you remember the Gauntlet with him when they got the bus? He was the cop in Phoenix, and he had to pick up the hooker in Vegas and drive her there, and they were trying to kill him and her both.
No,
it's called The Gauntlet. It's a great movie. Yeah. It's a movie you would watch. It's a good movie. It's called The Gauntlet, and she was in that with him, and then she was in all the ones with the ape, Every Which Way But Loose, and
okay. Yeah.
Well, he spoke at the RNC not too long, 8 years ago when maybe Romney was running.
Yeah, he's not a big fan of Obama like nobody else is.
Yeah,
And
go figure.
And then. Anyways, he's had a pretty historic career, and I liked I think he was an Italian or Indian guy, played in all the revenge movies. The people would kill somebody and he'd go live in a neighborhood and shoot everybody up.
Oh yeah.
What the hell? Charles Bronson.
Charles Bronson.
Well, he was in great movies too.
Yes, I used to watch him.
All movies back then were the same. They were all pro-American.
Well, yeah, and you had the bad guy and the good guy, and the good guy won.
Yes. And
I still enjoy watching Gunsmoke.
Yeah,
because it's very simple. Nobody fell over in bed. And they was humping each other. It's like Kitty and Matt Dillon, and he went out and he gets the bad guy, and everybody goes in and has a drink, and it's over.
Mm-hmm. I like Bonanza too.
Yeah. I don't watch Bonanza.
That was my favorite Western growing up. Yeah. The thing is, the Cartwrights, to have all that money and shit, they never had a good day. They never had a good day. Yeah. It's just like
had a pretty house then.
Yeah, my mom used to watch Murder, She Wrote, and it just drove me nuts. I said, "Mom, that's a nosy ass old woman. Because everywhere she goes, someone's getting freaking killed."
Yeah.
God.
But I just don't hardly watch any movies anymore.
I don't watch any new movies.
Except I'm a big documentary guy. I want to see fact. Yeah. This is exactly what happened. This is what changed history. That's the stuff I focus on.
I watched a new series on Netflix called Cocaine Cowboys. It's out right now. Have you seen it?
No, it's on my. I was going to watch it. Well,
it's very, very good. It's about I can't remember their names, Nick and Will.
I think this is the second season, though.
No, it's the first season I'm watching.
I think this is 2.
Oh, they're gonna have a 2-season one?
No, I think there's been one before.
Oh, I started and watched the first part though. Okay. I watched season 1, episode 1. There's only 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
Some guys never had a fucking job in their life, but they're racing these $1 million speedboats. They're running cocaine out of Colombia and stuff. Their biggest deals in Florida. I'm not gonna tell you because he ain't seen it yet. But anyways, it's all about them, how they started, what they did, getting arrested, going to court, and all this shit. It's very interesting. It's a documentary though. It's not a like someone's portraying anybody. It's an actual documentary. It's very, very good.
I'm interested in that. Did y'all ever watch The Longmire?
Yeah, that was a great show.
No, boy, we watched that. I bet I've watched it 4 times.
Really? It's also on.
I've heard a
lot. I have not seen Longmire. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
My father-in-law on his deathbed when his request was when he just wanted to go home and watch Longmire.
Yeah,
He wanted to go back and watch. He watched it.
Man.
The new season had come out, and he wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
Longmire is a very good show.
That's a really fine show.
Do you know there's one also about a game warden in Wyoming that's a lot like that?
Oh, really?
And it's Spirit River or something. It's on Netflix, but it's a series about a game warden, and he's dealing with the Indian Native American problems off the reservation, on the reservation. It reminded me a lot of Longmire.
I will watch that.
It's really good. And
I will watch
I think
that,
it's Wind River, Spirit River, Wind Spirit or something. But anyways, it's really good. But I think, as a matter of fact, I think they're also the Absaroka, which that's the county in Longmire, and I think it's the Absaroka Indian Reservation. Casinos, the same shit. Yeah. So I'm assuming that's a real. Well, Yellowstone's the same way, dealing with Indian issues.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what little I've watched of it.
So Yellowstone is really I liked it. They go a little overboard on taking them to the train station and killing people and shit. But, but it's nice to see real men stand up. Yeah.
What's the history with the 4.6s? So that little prequel mentioned that it was going to be in the 1800s or whatever. When did they settle that land, and who did it?
Burke Burnett's father, I think. I think it was more or less established really as a 4.6s around 1900.
Was it a fort or anything at the time? No,
it was just a ranch. People think, that you've heard the old story that, it was one poker game. Well, it wasn't. He just bought some cattle that had the 4.6s brand on them, and he adopted that brand.
Did he have a deal with Charles Goodnight or the Indian with Quanah Parker?
Quanah Parker. He and Quanah Parker were really big.
Yeah, because that was his big buddy. Because Quanah Parker trusted him.
Yes.
Burke Burnett.
Yes, because he bought.
Yes.
It's the Star House, isn't it? In
Star House. Yes.
People need to read more history books.
Yes. Yeah. And then you had his son, who's then there was Miss Ann, and then she had Ann Burnett, the one that recently passed away.
Now she's the one that was married to the Tandy guy, right?
Yes, at one time.
And they owned all the Radio Shacks and Tandy Leather and all that stuff.
And Marion, when she passed away.
So this was 3 generations.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
You had Burke Burnett, and then
you had his son, and then you had Ann Marion's mother.
Okay, so it is 4. Okay.
I wish we could get somebody from the ranch on here. That'd be a cool podcast. I don't know if they have anybody.
They're all kind of.
Well, you get Joe Leathers. I mean, he would be a great one.
Is he work over on the ranch?
He's a manager.
Oh, I would be really interested in getting him on here and just talk about it.
If he would do it.
Yeah. A lot of people don't want to.
Right.
You know what's funny is we get a list of people that want to be on the podcast all the time.
Yeah.
But 8 out of 10 of them don't have anything to talk about.
Right.
They think they do.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then we have a hard, if we didn't know you, it would have been hard to get you on our podcast probably.
Yeah.
But we knew you. And it's that way. It's getting that door into someone, and they're like, oh, yeah. And then you get them on, and then once we have somebody on once, we can get them on a second time, and it branches out. But a lot of people that have a lot of good stories to tell don't want everybody to know their story.
Yeah.
Or where they're at or anything. But the 4.6s would be an interesting.
Yeah, it would. When I was doing the book with Henry Chappell on the 4.6s, we learned a lot about the ranch, and of course, all the big ranches, the Wagner and the 4.6s, have a real colorful history, and a lot of the owners, current owners, who are now deceased, except for the ones on the Wagner. They didn't want it told because there were some tough people back then.
Yeah.
Those big ranches were put together by tough people.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong arm going on.
Strong arm. Like, for instance, whenever Burke Burnett had that guy that had that ranch within the 4.6s, and he was stealing cattle off the 4.6s. And what he would do, he would go to Fort Worth to the sale, and then he would buy cattle that Burke Burnett was selling that had this 4.6s brand, and he'd bring them back to his ranch. Well, that didn't go over very well. And he told him, he said, you need to stop. Well, that guy spread the word around. Well, I'm going to kill Burke Burnett next time I see him. Mm. And so Burke Burnett hired one of his men, and they went to Paducah and waited for him. And when he come in with some of his cowboys, that rancher, well, they followed him in the bathroom, and a gunshot was heard. Mm-hmm. and that guy went down. He was shot under the arm and came out on the other side. And Burke Burnett knew that he could probably beat it, and so they had the trial was in Seymour, and he had a parade. He led the parade around town, you know, blah blah blah, and he got off.
He was untouchable.
Yeah.
So where did he get his money to
I have no
purchase
idea.
the ranch?
I don't know. He just worked hard.
Back then,
I wonder what it sold. I wonder if I could find what it sold for to him originally.
well, who knows? But
Oh, yeah.
a lot of that,
because they, you know, they would buy out
yeah, it
little
wouldn't-
landowners, you know. So it would came in
Right.
parcels.
yeah, like the Wagners, they didn't get 583,000 acres at once. They
So it wasn't like
they-
the XIT where it was all one big patch.
Right.
Right.
You know, they bought by an English syndicate.
Right.
Dad knew a guy when Dad first come to Texas. He played music at Dale's Blue Lounge. Mickey Mantle was a regular. There was a lot of regular guys in there all the time. There were people, and one of them, and Dad become really good friends with, was Needham Steed. And Needham Steed was the Steed and Taubert that had that. And I went to school. I graduated with Taubert, with Trevor, a good friend of mine. Anyways, they had all the oil rights on the sixes. And
okay.
anyways, Dad had talked to someone that used to cowboy out here in different places,
yeah.
and he was an old guy. And he told Dad that he worked at the Wagner Ranch at one time, and he said they went somewhere one time to a house that they had just taken over, I guess, and the dishes were there. Everything was just like someone's got moved in the middle of the night.
Wow.
So I'm assuming that was one of those. You're going to get the hell out of here, and
One old story on the Wagner was there was a neighbor, and he was stealing Wagner cattle. And all of the cowboys, the wagon boss, they all knew where the roundup was going to occur, and they came up on the hill, and they were all issued Winchesters. And they rode down to that herd, and that Wagner wagon boss said, "Okay, let's go in. I'm going to cut the Wagner cattle out." And all the cowboys stood around with their Winchesters. Nobody did a thing. And they got their cattle, and they moved them out. They did things a tough way back then.
yep.
You wasn't, I'm going to call the sheriff
Right.
and get at you. You know, you've got my stuff. You know, I'm going to get my stuff.
Even
One way or another, I'm going to get my stuff.
even out here, when I first moved out here, it was different with the law enforcement shit. Tony got into an altercation with another guy at one time, and the guy flipped Tony off and ran at Tony, and Tony physically pushed him across the road, which was lucky because Tony could have killed him probably with his hands. But anyways, the guy called the sheriff. Sheriff, come out here and talk to us about it and shit. And Tony told him what happened. He goes, okay. The guy got in trouble for drinking and driving. but it was you know,
Sure.
there's the right way and the wrong way, and that's the way things were done. And it was still that way here when I first came here. And you know,
Well, you can imagine what it was like back in the 50s
Oh,
and early 60s
yes.
when I was a kid. I mean, it was so different. I mean, like I remember one day my dad was with H.C. Stone. I think he's passed now, but big guy, never carried a pistol. If he did, it was a snub-nosed .38 Smith & Wesson, one of those little bitty jobs. And but he wore a big boot, about a size 13, 14 boot. And they picked a guy up on the side of the road that was window peeping or something. Come to Benjamin, and OHC just said, "Get out, go to the dadgum jailhouse there." And the guy got out, and he fell over on the sidewalk, said, "I'm having a heart attack." And Daddy watched it. He said, HC ran up behind him and kicked him in the butt and said, "Get up, you're not having a heart." Said that guy jumped up and hauled ass to the daggum jailhouse.
yeah, that's the way things should be.
You can't do that
No,
today.
hell no.
And that's how it should be. Just like Burke Burnett.
Yes.
He had a threat on his life, so it's
He
just,
took-
by God,
he-
we're going to
he
handle this
acted
real
on it.
quick.
People
That's
didn't
right.
spout off the shit they were going to do.
Exactly.
You know, we've had that guy, Charles Beatty, that's the Prince of Poachers. He poached on the King and the Kennedy and
Yeah.
all that crap. Anyways, he's an interesting guy. Outlaw, but an interesting person. Kind of like Jesse James. And different deal. But as you get older, the old outlaws become interesting because of the things they've done. Well, anyways, he said he was scared to death to get caught on the King Ranch because of what the Cowboys would have done to him. He wasn't worried about Johnny Law catching him. He wasn't worried about a game warden. He wasn't worried about a sheriff. He was worried about them guys catching him because they would have thrown a rope around him and drug his ass.
That's right. They had their own law out
That's
there
right.
on that ranch.
And nobody probably would ever found him.
Yeah.
But that was his biggest fear, was getting caught by the
Yeah.
King Ranch Cowboys.
Yeah.
More than the law.
Yeah.
And
because I had heard that years ago, back in the 70s, that if you were caught on a King Ranch, you could get just executed out there. You could be
Right.
Possibility of it, or at
Yeah,
least
800,000 acres.
make you want to be executed.
Yeah.
Wish you were.
back to the 4.6s. Back in the 1800s, when I drive, when you get outside of the Bateman Ranch, which people don't know, that's 20 miles outside of Benjamin. They're pretty close. When you get to that point, up until that point, you look like you're driving in the foothills of New Mexico. You got green cedar, you got white rock. The Wichita River coming through there is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
It's got some springs on it. It's pretty. It's got some deep water. But when you get past the Bateman, it turns off into nothing pretty fast.
Yeah.
They had to have some major water issues back then for the cattle.
There's no doubt. I mean, because all the springs are jippy.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know how they.
That was a tough life.
That was a tough life.
And the Pitchfork, where you do all your coyote hunting and stuff, same way, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no running water out there. Now we don't know what was there in the 1800s because the water tables were higher. You didn't have irrigation. Those things may have sourced from way up the country and came down. But I know on the 4.6s, somewhere I was hunting one day with the manager, and when Mike Gibson was the manager, and he said, there's a Comanche village right here. Well, Comanches didn't drink jip water, but there wasn't any water there. But there were the confluence of two streams. And so we were just eating lunch, and one of our partners jumped out and walked over and picked up a metal arrowhead, which is Comanche and Kiowa. And Mike said, man, I've found several metal points here. So at one time, there was more water, probably good water.
There had to be because there was no irrigation.
And I was shown a buffalo hunter's camp in one of the pastures, and it's, you can tell that one time there was a spring there because there's some cattails.
Oh yeah.
But there's no water there now.
Right.
But there's a dugout, and the guy had found 245 110 cartridges, which, I mean, that's 1876. And so
it makes you wonder, because we've had, obviously I've not recorded weather like you have, but it's been a very unusual summer. It's been
very unusual,
very wet, very mild.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder if maybe back in that time, maybe they saw weather similar to what we're seeing today.
I can promise you, in the 60s, weather was so much significantly different than it is today. Cooler with more moisture.
Really?
You could set, you could lay money on the table. It is going to rain in late August, early September. You're going to have a monsoonal flow, and you're going to be able to sow wheat on it.
Right.
You can't do that anymore.
No.
You can't depend on it.
No.
Things
and
have changed.
I'm still shell shocked from like 2011, 2012. Like this year is just beyond anything, because Texas, we talk about it. It's hot, it's dry, and this year has not been. It has not been the case. We had about a week, first part of August, where it got hot, 100 degrees.
Yep.
But like we were talking before the podcast, it's going to be in the 90s is all next week.
Yeah, and a chance of rain 4 or 5 days in a row, they said.
And it's just very unusual to even have a shot of rain in August.
This summer is more like the summers I remember when I was a kid.
Really?
We had 3/4 of an inch of rain here on Sunday morning.
I saw that happening.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we didn't even have a chance of rain.
Yeah.
I heard it thunder, and I thought, what the hell? And I looked at my radar, and I thought,
Well, yesterday morning.
Yes.
Did y'all get some
yes,
yesterday
it rained
morning?
at my house, yes.
And I sat there on the porch with my green tea and listened to thunder, watched some serious bolts of lightning back here.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, we're not going to get it, but somebody is around Knox City.
Now, we got rain at my house, but we didn't get near as much. I think we had 1/10 of an inch maybe.
Yeah.
It rained, but we had 3/4 of an inch here. And it's been wet. When I drove in the driveway today, Tony had told me it rained a bunch. When I drove in, I saw the puddles in the road, and I thought, son of a bitch, it did rain a bunch.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
The green, it looks like April or May out here. We've kept
Yeah.
it mowed and watered, and we've weed,
Yeah.
and it looks nice. For this time of year, you don't see it easily unless we've done a whole lot of watering.
Yeah.
And we haven't done any water. We haven't ran a sprinkler at the lodge yet this year.
I have not turned our well water on at the house.
We've watered 3 times. But Michelle, if you can't walk through our yard and you sink down from it being so moist, she thinks it's dying.
Yeah.
Well, it's stressed. Well, yeah, it's drowning over there. So it's so much water, it's drowning.
So 1870 was when Captain Samuel Burke Burnett
Okay.
founded or first purchased his
His
100
cattle
head
herd.
of cattle wearing the
Okay.
4-6 brand
Yeah.
in Frank Crowley from Frank Crowley of Denton.
A
What
lot
was
of
he a
the-
captain in?
He was probably a steamboat captain because those guys were big role players in the cattle industry.
I know that that the King Ranch, Mr. King was a steamboat guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
They got a lot. They made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you said earlier that the Indians had a specific tip,
Metal.
tip.
Yeah.
Where'd they get the metal from?
They traded wagon hoops and barrel hoops, and they would cut them out. Mike Gibson, he's found so many trade files that has been edged, broken and edged, where they would beat and they would cut out these points in V's, and then they would file them down into points.
The Spanish had metal.
Well, the Comanche also traded with New Mexicans, the Comanchero traders, and they would come out. They would come out of Las Vegas, come out of Santa Fe, Tucumcari, and those guys would make. You could buy. You could trade for a dozen points for a buffalo robe or something, and or maybe a white captive from that Palo Pinto County. You get you that one, some coffee, and maybe a bottle of whiskey after the Comancheros left, because they would never trust the Comanches or the Kiowas with whiskey. They'd always hide it. And then when they were leaving, they'd say, okay, 10 miles from here, there's a barrel of whiskey. And then they would haul butt and try to get back to New Mexico as quick as they could, because they knew the Comanches were going to come after them and get all their stuff back.
Yeah. So
Smart trading.
there's always, everybody talks about the peace pipe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any writings of marijuana growing out here, or where did the Indians get the marijuana from?
I've never heard anything about
It was peyote.
pot. It was peyote if it was anything.
So
peyote.
it wasn't marijuana. It
That
was
all
peyote.
came from down on the border.
We had
Marijuana did?
No,
Peyote?
the peyote. Yeah.
we had a local guy in town that used to smoke peyote.
I think you drank peyote a tea.
He smoked it, but he was a jacked up dude, so there's no telling what he was taking. And when we get off air, I'll tell you who it is, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah." I can see that.
I've talked to people who have piddled with that stuff, and you always make a tea with it, and it would be something that I would not have any interest in, because you'd have to throw up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually throw up, and then you have your hallucinations, and that didn't sound like fun to me. So I would
No.
never have done that.
Been a
No,
miserable life.
You're right.
Think
It
about
is.
Val Kilmer in The Doors.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Jim Morrison was going through.
I did not realize. I thought, okay, so the peyote cactus, as easy recipe for the magic mushroom. There's some chance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. They would make it into a tea.
Into a tea. And they're about this big around. I mean, I photographed it down on the East Foundation, purposely for the book project. And there was a certain part of the ranch that had a lot of peyote, and so I wanted to document it. And they had a lot of problems with peyote, people coming in. These Mexicans would come in with backpacks. They'd walk 10 miles and come in, and they would dig up the peyote, and they would leave like with 50 pounds of peyote on their back, and they wouldn't get maybe, $10 a pound for it, but they'd walk 10 miles, and they actually had cameras set up, and they'd catch these guys.
What's it called that the Wakasa? There's something that they make in the rainforest that's the same kind of shit.
I'm not sure
Ayahuasca?
about that.
Oh, that's it right there.
Ayahuasca. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's like a tea. You're with this shaman, and then like you shit all over yourself. You puke everywhere. It is not good.
I'm not.
It's
And
rainforest stuff, right? Is it in the
Yeah.
rainforest?
I've heard people. What's crazy is like all these Hollywood celebrities are going to like South America into the jungle, and they get in like these things and they drink this tea and they're with this shaman. And I can't remember who was talking about it recently. Her and her husband went down there, and did this, and like you're in a group of like 12 people, and each person single file goes and vomits everything out of their stomach, takes the tea, and then like just has these mind-altering hallucinations.
Sorry, that doesn't jive with
and
me
you're
at
in the
all.
middle of the jungle, so you're not taking a shower. You've shit everywhere.
Hot and
You've
sweaty
puked
and
everywhere.
miserable.
Oh my God!
But what were the Native Americans trying to get out of this peyote?
Oh, they were having these vision quests, and they think that, like in the Pecos culture, which was 4,000 years ago, that all those paintings in the Pecos River Canyonlands, that was derived from peyote.
Hallucinations.
Geronimo got a little hopped up on the shit and started painting.
I find that fascinating personally, like how much of our world was set up just off of people tripping.
Yeah,
Just like you said, just like the cave paintings.
I'm telling you, you go to places like Rattlesnake Canyon, which is between Langtree. See, it's west of Langtree, and Texas Tech owned it at one time. I don't know if they still do, but I would take my class down there each mini semester when I was teaching at Tech, and you had to hike down to it, and you go down to the Rio Grande, through the cane, and then back up this Rattlesnake Canyon, and you come to this incredible panel. I mean, it was like way bigger than this room right here as far as width, and solid, nothing but solid paintings of all these weird guys with deer antlers, and you go, these guys, they were in a trance of some sort.
Right. Yeah. And they did not, I mean, I'm sure they found this cactus, made it into what they thought was going to be like a stew or a tea or something. They thought it would be beneficial health-wise, and then it's just the doors open up.
Yeah. I think I asked this one other time, but I don't remember. How long were the Indians, the Native Americans, whatever we're supposed to call them, how long ago did they actually become the Indians that we know of? Like
the tribes.
Like tribes, nomadic tribes. Were they here 1,200, 1,300?
No, yeah, probably. No. The Comanches, I think they came in about the early 1600s.
So they really were not much different than. So white man didn't get here much different than them then.
Yeah. They, of course, you had when white men got here. When was it? In 1492 or whatever it was. You had the Iroquois,
right?
And of course the Iroquois were broken down into groups, the Oneidas and blah blah blah.
They were pretty civilized.
They were very civilized.
Yes.
Yeah. They were a good bunch of people.
Yes.
And
because they lived in the
woods. I'm not trying to judge them.
They lived in the
hellfire. If I'd been in India, I wouldn't be as wild as any of them.
Yeah, they lived in wigwams, didn't they?
Yeah, Hogan's or whatever.
Yeah, and they had like fire in the house. I mean, they were really a lot different than the nomadic
and
tribes.
You know what I found out yesterday that was very interesting. I don't know why I looked this up, but I read yesterday. I was doing some research, and I found out that the early day Indians were significantly taller than Anglos.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that the Cheyenne, the Comanche were the shortest. They averaged about 5'6", but the Indians, because of their lifestyle, they were mobile. Mm-hmm. They ate meat, they ate vegetables, they ate seeds. They were constantly on the move. They were very physical, and so the average Indian in the early days was a much taller person than the Anglos. Anglos were like 5'7". Yeah. A lot of Cheyenne were 6 feet, 6'2". One in particular, and I think he was a Sioux, Lakota, like 6'9".
What was his name?
I can't remember.
Because I read about him.
I can't remember.
In a book 2 or 3 books ago about Indians I was reading. I was talking about him, about how he stood over everyone.
Yeah, it's because of their lifestyle.
I mean, damn.
They were constantly on the move, very physical people, and they were taller.
If you go in the houses in like Salem, Mass, mm-hmm. the houses were built in the 1600s, mm-hmm. the ceilings in them suckers are only 5'5" or something, or 6 foot. Now I took they were so because it was warm in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
Keep
They were
them
smaller
heat,
people.
but they weren't not near as big.
Well, so what made the Anglo taller? Because I mean, you're what, 6'2", 6'3"?
Just 6 feet.
You're just 6
Straight,
feet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so many. You know, Ron, he was a big guy. I wonder if it was
That's
the
German blood.
Well,
German coming over that
yeah.
made the Anglo quite a bit bigger.
It might have, but it's. They said that the early day Anglos that came over, they were basically half starved,
Oh, right.
and they didn't have a good diet even when they got over here, and so their kids just didn't have that developed, physiological incentive to develop.
What happened to the Mayans? Because them suckers are all about 5'2" or 3.
I guess Spaniards whooped them. I don't know.
I'm telling you. Have you been to the Yucatan?
I have been to Mexico City and went out to the temples out there back in '69.
There's some small fellas.
That's another. I mean, like, how do some of these things get developed if they're not just taking peyote or whatever? Like, how are you going to build this god of, whatever? What's one of the temples that's down there?
Chichen
You got, like,
Itza.
cats and
I'm gonna tell you right now, the
or
Mayans.
Quetzalcoatl. How do you come up with Quetzalcoatl if you're not tripping out on
I'm telling you, I agree.
peyote or something?
The Mayans were a very smart group of people. I don't know what happened. We had and so is the Egyptians.
Yes.
Something happened, and I don't know what it is. There's been some event. Maybe they got coronavirus. I don't know. But something wiped out a bunch of technology.
Yeah.
It had to be. And what's the place in South America called? Pachachico or
I can't pronounce it.
you know what I'm talking about, though. That's an amazing thing.
Well, it's not. Hold on, y'all go ahead. But there's a place called Göbekli Tepe. And
You talked about
it's
this.
in Turkey, and I'll find the dates on it. But it precedes anything. They had a brewery there that predates other beers by like 10,000 years. So I'll see if I can find the dates on it.
Machu Picchu or whatever it is. I don't think they even know what it was for.
Yeah. I'm not big in South American history.
American history, and just what we don't. We can't even go back 300 or 400 years and figure out shit. And we're supposed to figure out what's going on 15,000 years ago in places. So it ain't going to happen. But the reason I asked about the Indians, I wondered when the present day Indian, that we call an Indian, of Geronimo, Squanto, and all that. So probably by 1550 to 1600, they were running the plains, but they didn't have they didn't have horses.
No, Coronado, when he came in 15 whatever.
That brung the horses.
That brought the horses, but they wrote about running across the tribe. They weren't tribes; they were more like family units. They were up on the Llano Estacada, around Lubbock country, and Plainview up in there. And they talked about they lived in squalor and everything. So the tribes had not, come together at that time. They were mainly just family units.
So basically like a bunch of wild dogs running around.
Exactly. They talked about the mongrel dogs they had, and they would run and hide when they would come to the camp, and they'd run and they'd just all take off and wouldn't fight. They just tried to hide from the Spaniards.
No communications, no nothing.
Nothing.
So this here, okay, it's a Göbekli Tepe. It's in Turkey.
I'm glad you can pronounce that.
Yeah, no kidding, right? It's 12,000 years old and has been abandoned for 9,000 years.
Wow.
It predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years. They found where they were making beer there. They found, it's just, you can see it's just this place. It's like a city.
Yeah.
And it's 12,000 years old. It predates anything that they thought was capable from these Neolithic people.
And you think
long time ago.
And you think there's
So
a
there
Bigfoot running around? They can find all this shit out.
Well,
they made beer, but we can't find a Bigfoot.
But what this is saying is that there's obviously, just like the Egyptians, something happened and these early people did not make it. There was a technology gap. Something cataclysmic happened.
Yes.
And wipe these people out and set human society back thousands of years.
It's like the cliff dwellers in Colorado, Mesa Verde.
Yeah.
What happened to those? All at once. It was like a cataclysmic occasion, some kind of occurrence, and boom, it was gone.
I think they had some kind of, and I was making fun of the coronavirus, I think there was some kind of pandemic happened. They didn't have no medicines back then, but what would initiate that to give to these people, because these people lived on islands basically.
Yeah, yeah, I'll tell you something to think of also to consider is that, back 6,000 years ago, there was called the Great Drought that lasted like 1,000 years.
Well, that could be it.
And if you go to Lubbock Lake site there at the museum, they talk about that, the Great Drought of which was paleo time. And that's whenever you had a lot of those paleo people that grouped together there at Lubbock Lake site, and they find a lot of the remnants of their existence there.
Well, it's Mesa Verde's a place in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Those people were pretty intelligent.
Yeah, they were.
I've never been there. That's one of my bucket list places, the things I'd like to see.
Pretty cool. I've been there one time.
I want to go in like March because there won't be a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And so that is a place that's on the list of mine to see. But I'd like to see that. But we lost everything. Mm-hmm. The Mayans, the Egyptians.
This says an asteroid likely 13,000 years ago wiped out a civilization. Now it's saying that it could happen again in 2030. Who cares? But
Well, I will about 2029.
At this point, like maybe somebody else should take over. But it is possible that they have found.
Could you imagine? Let's just stop for just a minute.
Yeah.
This happens now, and man comes out of a cave 100 years from now and starts over and don't know how to do shit again.
Wow.
And then we get to this stage 4,000 or 5,000 years down the road, and you're going to be looking at all them skyscrapers and what the fuck happened to these people?
Uh-huh.
I mean, damn, they could fly
and
and everything.
It could happen.
Yeah.
Well, and like I was thinking, I
want
was
to go in the first blow if it happens.
I was using butter of all things. I put butter before I do my eggs, and I was like, I couldn't make this shit if I had to.
That's right.
But people do. People did for a very long time before they bought it.
Think how long
at the
it
store
took to figure out how to make butter.
Yeah, I mean just
beginning.
something as simple as
Cottage
butter.
cheese, sour cream, everything.
But I did. That came. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I was about to make eggs, and I was using butter, and I was like, I couldn't do this.
I used to love.
I couldn't churn butter and create a product.
I used to love when my dad would talk about my grandma. She'd separate the cream. I don't even know what that means. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what separating the cream means.
Churning cream. That mother used to sit down, and we'd wrap a towel around it, and she'd say, "All right, kids, y'all sit there and churn," and we'd sit there and churn butter by hand. I remember those years back in the 50s.
And it separates the cream from the butter, right?
I guess.
And that cream they would use to make. I mean, I drank milk that wasn't pasteurized when I was little. I don't like milk anyways, but it tastes a whole lot different than regular milk.
When back in the 50s, Dad would had a milk cow, and we would have quart jars of milk in our refrigerator with this much cream on top of the milk.
Oh yeah.
That much cream.
Wow.
And it was good.
It's real sweet, wasn't it?
It was sweet. It was that much cream. You'd have a quart jar like this much of it would be cream.
and that's what they used to make real whipping cream with.
Yeah.
And they would whip it up in toppings for stuff, and it was sweet though.
Man, it was good.
Yeah, see,
you coat your mouth. It's like a paint, like you were drinking, a water-based paint.
99% of the people in the world don't even know what that is. To what you're talking about.
No, I agree.
And so, but I used to love my dad talking about the old stories. My grandma, because she would do the butter and the cream, and then she had egg money, and they would raise eggs, and she would sell her eggs, and that would be her money to do what she wanted with her, save for Christmas presents or whatever would be the egg money.
Well, Daddy, I mean, I can remember Daddy, he had 200 hens, and he sold eggs during the week. He'd go to town with, 15 dozen eggs, and he'd deliver eggs all around town for extra money.
Bet your dad killed every snake around y'all's place, didn't he?
Yeah.
And you don't kill snakes.
I don't kill snakes, yeah.
But your dad did, and I don't blame him.
That's absolutely.
What? Now that we brung that up, what would you do if he's in Grand Prairie and you seen that freaking cobra that's on the loose?
I'd get away from you.
Would you shoot it?
Cobra don't need to be here.
I'm with you. I'd shoot it. You know what? I read a deal.
That's not an indigenous species.
No.
You don't need to be here.
And they haven't learned from the problems Florida's having with the pythons
where
and
did
shit.
that come from? Where did Cobra? What's
Private
the deal?
collector.
Private collector. Now,
Got out.
I've seen we had a guy on the other day that was a snake guy, the big country snake removal. They pulled out
crazy.
121 rattlesnakes out of a house in Seymour. I'd move. But
House is being occupied?
Yes.
underneath it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Got a call that they had been seeing snakes on their porch. He went there, crawled underneath the crawl space, 121 rattlesnakes that he had he had to make 2 trips. He ran out of tubs.
Whoa.
That's a lot of rattlesnakes.
That's a lot of rattlesnakes.
I don't like one rattlesnake, much less 121. Anyways, we was talking about that, and we talked about people buying a license to carry it. Because I said, how do you get a cobra? Oh, you go down to Texas Parks Wildlife for $20. You can get a permit. $20 permit. So I see all these bleeding heart bunny huggers on this deal in Dallas talking about this thing. Well, you have to be trained. You just don't get a license. No, you just pay $20. So anybody can buy a freaking cobra. They think the cobra, from one of the things I read, and this may be false, said they thought she was fixing to lay all her eggs. So now we're going to have a whole colony of cobras in the Metroplex.
Holy Moses.
I mean, so
that's how crap like fire ants get started.
Yes, that's right. And a damn banded cobra, and they're one of the most dangerous snakes there is. This sucker's 6 foot tall, or 6 foot long, so it can jump 9 feet.
Holy Moses.
And it shoots that damn venom in it. But
It's
they
a
have
spitting cobra? Like
they all spit, I think.
Oh, I don't think so.
I know that some of them
Andy.
do.
Some of them do.
I
know.
think all cobras can spit.
Yeah.
We're about to find out, Jeff. I'll look
But
it
it's
up
a
for you.
banded,
Banded cobra.
banded
Out
cobra.
of what country?
I think India. Which, India, you don't go walking barefoot in India.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't even go to India. I won't go to Australia just
No.
because I don't want to. Because every dangerous every dangerous snake, and every dangerous spider, and they got sharks.
Yeah.
Ain't no reason to go to Australia.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
What was there? Was it just rattlesnakes out here that the Native Americans talked about having to deal with, or did they even mention it? Was there any other poisonous snake at the time?
I've never read where they even mentioned much about the snake.
I've never seen them ever deal. I'm sure they didn't worried about them.
They probably weren't. Of all the other shit that they had to worry about,
Yeah.
snakes were probably not very high on their list. Jeff, there it is right there. All cobras do not spit.
Where you seen that at?
Right there, in bold.
Yeah, the
Not-
ones that are dead don't.
Not all cobras spit.
Jeff would argue.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right
Google
now.
is undefeated, Jeff.
Every snake I see is either a cobra or a rattlesnake. So
Yeah.
the hog nose, you still can't convince me that that's not a cobra. Sometimes 'cause they fan out.
Spreading at her. Yeah, Daddy always called them spreading at her, because they kind of flatten out. But
For the first time in my life, I saw one last summer.
uh-huh.
I'd never seen one before, and we
Yeah,
had one outside.
I have not seen one in decades.
We had one out here that day, and Tony let it go. He called somebody that said, "Oh, they're good snakes," and he let it go. But I've never. That's the first time I've ever seen one in my life.
Yeah, I haven't even seen a rattler in months.
I saw a rattlesnake. I come home one day, probably about a month ago, and someone had killed a Masaga rattlesnake next to my house, and it was in the road. I took the damn trash out, and I stepped over the damn thing, thinking it was a stick, not paying attention.
Yeah.
And then when I was walking back, I realized what the hell it was, and it was a Masaga rattlesnake.
Yeah, those are ill-tempered little rattlers.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I've dealt with them some, and he'll strike you 3 times for a big diamondback will.
I don't like snakes. I never have.
I don't have a problem with them. I really don't. They're here trying to make a living.
That I understand. Just like a coyote and whatever else is out there. Have you seen these people now that's just quest of theirs to go grab a badger by the back of its neck and pick it up out of a hole?
Oh, Jesus. What has it come to?
What do you
wanna
think the
do
outcome
that?
would be if you grab one?
I have dealt with badgers before in steel traps and let them go. And you have to basically knock them out to get them out of a steel trap to let them go. I mean, they can turn wrong side out.
They're meaner than hell.
Well, they're not going to come and eat you, but I certainly wouldn't grab a hold of one.
No. They're not going to come attack you.
Yeah.
But I damn sure wouldn't want to try to grab one.
No, my goodness gracious. I mean, a badger, they're just ferocious.
And I've seen videos the other day, and that's a big thing now is for people to go up and grab them.
Why?
Because they haven't been bit by one. The first time one crawls up their arm, they're never going to jack with it again. Have you ever seen a Wolverine in life?
No, I have not.
I've seen them on TV. I thought I saw one this year when we were in Michigan across the road, but I thought it was crazy. But I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Take a badger and make it about 5 times bigger than what it is a badger. That's a big animal to be that mean.
Yes. Yeah.
Could the white man, I want to go back to the Indians real quick. What did the white man have to do to get in the good graces of like the Comanches or anything like that? Or was there anything that they could do?
Well, there were several different groups of Comanches. There were the honey eaters, and there were the real wild ones were the Quahatas. That was
Quahada Comanche.
The Quahada. They were the ones that stayed out on the far reaches of the plains. They would not come in. They wouldn't deal with white men. If you went to a Quahada camp, you had a problem.
Really?
But you talking about there were the antelope people. There were the honey eaters, but there were various bands, and they were less warlike than the Quahadas, and they would trade, but the Quahadas they were like very arrogant, very independent. I would say independent and arrogant. They were tough.
Yeah.
They lived to fight. They lived to steal horses and hunt buffalo, and they were like, we don't need these people. Very independent.
There was a show with Pierce Brosnan, The Sun.
Yeah.
And he was brought up by, I don't know, it wasn't Comanches, but he was taken, and then he was brought up by the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
So was there this warrior type culture that they instilled in the young kids? Was there like, would they talk about like, was there like a program? Would they take the kids at a certain age?
Played lots of games.
They let the kids were never, they never got whipped. They never got reprimanded. They were allowed to just be kids out in the wild.
Free spirits.
Very free-spirited. They were taught to hunt with a bow early. They played games. They played rough games. And then at a certain point, they were, this is what you do as a warrior.
At about 12 years old.
They would like let them hold the horses for them during the raid, that type of thing.
Lacrosse was a big game for them. They taught them a lot of skills.
Yeah.
That's where that came from. But
I wonder what the life expectancy was of a Comanche.
I bet
Did
mid-30s.
you see 30? Did you even see 30, I wonder? Living that kind of lifestyle?
A lot of the leaders were older guys.
Yeah.
I read last night, I believe Quanah Parker's daddy was killed, I believe, when he was 44. I think 44.
Was that Mangus, Colorado, his dad?
No, that was an Apache.
Okay. Mangus, Colorado was somebody's dad, and I'm trying to think. Maybe it was Cochise.
Yeah, I've read about the Comanches. I've got the story on the Apaches, but it's been a while since I've read those books. Very interesting books.
Who was Cynthia Parker's husband?
That would have been good gracious. Oh my goodness gracious!
Not Geronimo, was it?
No. Geronimo was Apache.
Who is it, Jeff?
Cynthia and Parker.
Cynthia and Parker's.
She had a guy, and she told him she'd marry him, but she was gonna be his only woman.
Oh. He was Peter Nakona.
Peter Nakona. Yeah. And that was Quanah Parker's daddy.
Yep.
But
they took Cynthia Ann.
Yeah,
in a raid
from Parker County, Weatherford.
County, yes.
Her uncle and somebody left the freaking gate open. When I read about this, I'm like, why the frick would you leave your damn gate open? Yeah. They left their gate open, and they killed the uncle and the dad. And another uncle was in town or got away or something, and they took Cynthia Ann and her little brother, or the older brother and her uncle tried to get her, and they got her, and she went back or something, or tried to go back or something. I can't remember all that, but it was Pete Nakona. I always get him in Mangus, Colorado.
Peter Nakona.
I think Mangus, Colorado was Cochise's dad.
I don't recall.
I think he was Cochise's dad.
It's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've read the book on the Apaches.
I read a lot of stuff, and I get confused on what. Yeah.
So was Quanah Parker like the last great Comanche chief? Is that what?
Yeah.
Is that his claim to fame?
Yes.
He was
He was the last great Comanche leader,
and sold them out,
ushered them into civilization.
Yes, because he made a deal, didn't he?
Oh, he was a businessman.
He slept in his White House.
He was part Anglo. And so he realized early that, I mean, he went from Stone Age to modern man. I mean, he was like a very rare
Rodent
specimen.
trains.
Yeah, and he had like 8 wives, either 6 or 8 wives. I read that last night because I read about the Star House last night. I don't know
what's
why.
that?
I
So
did.
who the government built that for Quanah Parker?
Burke Burnett.
Burke Burnett did. Built
Burke
it for him
Burnett.
at Lawton.
Cost him $2,000.
It's right
No
north
kidding.
of Lawton, I think.
I don't know where it is now, but it was like on Fort Sill land, but they moved it, and some guy owns it. And a lady last night called me who's trying to raise
I saw
money
that. I saw a deal that
get
they're doing.
that thing refurbished because it's about to
Did you see the
collapse.
inside of it?
No.
They still got furniture and stuff in it. I can't believe, of all the stuff we're going politically correct and do this and do that, why is it an issue to save something like that? The government should say, you know what, here's $250,000 to restore it.
Fix
if you
it.
need $1 million, here's $1 million.
They said it's going to take $1 million. To
Well,
fix
you'd
it
think that you would think one of them casinos up there that's making billions of dollars,
Yes.
you'd think someone would want to preserve their heritage.
I would.
I would, and I'm not even an Indian. I would think it
if
would
I
be.
had $50 million, I'd go, here's $1 million. Fix
Yeah.
that thing back up.
Yeah, I don't. We've got to save our history, regardless of what
Yes.
size you're. It's a great. And a lot of people think he sold the Indians out. A lot of them did because he got with white men, but he was doing what he thought was best for that
He
tribe.
was trying to save them.
Yes, he was trying to make their life better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it shows the
That's it.
interior. Well,
No.
I mean, I don't know that it
Yeah,
shows
that's-
the interior.
That's it.
No, I saw a picture the other day of the interior. They done it, and the lady was right
Well,
there.
I mean,
it is.
Is this a picture of it today?
Probably.
Probably,
yes.
yes.
That's all falling in.
Yes.
What gets me is how did
That's
that
a crime.
How did that come from that other house in the last 50 years? How come
Right.
someone didn't say, "Hey, I've seen that before. I've been to that house years and years
They
ago."
moved it. Fort Sill needed to expand their gunnery range, and so they moved it. And now it's in a kind of a flood zone.
Yeah.
Look at it
And-
when it was first built. I mean, look at that house.
Yeah, well,
Oh, wow.
I don't understand why it still doesn't look that way. I
Right.
get that way when I drive through houses here. Have you seen the
Wow.
house over at Beaumerton, the little brick house that's on the north side of the road?
No.
There's a nice brick house there. It's just the wall, the brick and stuff. How did it get to that point?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a brick home. I don't. There's so many of them.
Like the one in O'Brien. That
Yeah, the
beautiful,
Carney.
House.
that beautiful home
Oh.
there in the brush. When in 1977, that house was restorable.
Yeah, I bet.
It was restorable
And
Yeah.
a beautiful home.
in a gorgeous home. But now look at it.
Yeah, I walked in that thing about 7 years ago. Still old rocking chairs and stuff in it. So when they left that thing, they just locked the door and went to vacation and never come back. At one time, I mean, I'm just guessing that. I don't know what happened, but there was furniture and stuff in it.
I don't know what the history
Furniture
is.
from that era. It wasn't furniture from like someone moved in and
Yeah. Wow.
But my mother, so she went in the 80s as a high school kid. You know, all the high school kids go there. But she said dishes were in the cupboards, sheets were made up on the bed, and it was just like somebody just evaporated.
walked away.
Just walked away from it. And I'm like you. So I graduated in 06. So last time I was in there was like in 04. And it was in rough shape then. But I mean, it's just like, gosh almighty. Like we let that just cave in on itself. And it
Beautiful
was a
home.
beautiful home. It still is. We drive past it today and it's still just like this.
well, it's gothic
beauti-
looking now.
There's
Well,
a,
it's in bad shape now, but
It's not
it's just
savable.
no, it's gone.
And I worry. When I was in high school, the big thing was to break in there and walk around. And there's notes. I can remember that when I was in school. There's notes just strewn out all over the place from the early 1900s that
Oh,
these
my
people had written to one another.
goodness.
We would read notes, and I mean, it's just. So now I'm like, God Almighty! I hope high school kids aren't still going in
it needs
there.
to burn down before somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, because the kid's gonna go in there and the roof's
Stars
gonna
gonna
cave in.
the stairs are gonna fall in. First of all, every town in America has got a carny house.
Oh yeah,
Every town in America does. And it just wonders how someone leaves a grand old home and just walks away and no one ever. What's the story with the old Aspermont, or the Stonewall County Courthouse?
Yeah, that one on the hill. Well, I think the story there is that they assumed that was going to be the county seat, and then they decided that Aspermont would be, and it just kind of went away.
That was a grand place.
Yeah, I was there and visited whenever a guy and his wife lived there, and talked to him because I was shooting him for Texas Highways magazine.
Have you? There's a show on Discovery Channel or History Channel, Abandoned Places or something.
Yeah.
And they had Alaska the other day, and they got this huge building that the government built in 1900 or something, and it's just they just walked away. I mean, it's huge, as big as any auditorium anywhere in this country is, and it was showed abandoned places all over, and it just amazes me. But out here, and I noticed it in Oklahoma or wherever we're at, you're in the middle of the country, and you drive up on these grand old homes that are just falling in, and you think, how does a family just let a house like that fall?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, think of Fort Griffin. Fort Griffin.
Yeah.
well, but it was never a grand home.
Well, it was still this great piece of Texas history that had it had buildings and
Yeah, but it become a ghost town real quick.
Yeah.
2 years and it was a ghost town. I'm
Yeah.
talking
So-
about places where people raise their families 2 or 3 generations, and then the son-in-law or somewhere builds them a new house somewhere, and that house just sits, and they just they don't want to jack with nobody being around it.
So do you
and it
think
just falls
with
in.
Fort Griffith it evaporated too quickly, and that was before we were
There
worried
was
about
no job.
Well,
preserving our
they,
history?
They didn't establish a railroad through there.
Yeah.
They were anticipating a railroad, and it didn't happen.
And the town, there was no jobs. It just withered away.
And then whenever the Indian issue was over, Fort Griffin,
yeah.
the fort itself evaporated. So the flats, nothing there for anybody.
Right.
When you
and we weren't concerned with preserving our
they
history.
got rid of the
back then.
bars,
Right.
the whores, and the gambling, and same thing
right.
happened. You take all that away from Las Vegas, and it'd be a ghost
That's
town in about 2 weeks. So it's the same. It's the same concept there.
Well, I've grown up out here my whole life. I didn't realize there was an opera house in Anson. That's this great big.
I didn't either.
The opera house in Anson. Yeah, it's right to the right of the courthouse as you make your way around there.
Are they preserving it?
Well, I don't know.
Wait a minute, that may be where they have
Somebody famous died
they-
there. I think.
Okay, is it being used?
I'm not sure. I'll look it up.
Because each Christmas they have like the Cowboy Christmas Festival there.
It is somewhere down there.
Yes, and I photographed it twice for Texas Highways magazine. Some singer, can't remember his name now. He was there the last time I photographed.
Probably the guy that plays at
Michael
Stanford.
Martin Murphy.
Oh, but he married you, didn't he?
Huh?
Didn't he marry you?
No, that was Gary Morris.
Gary, he's a singer too, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got the guys confused.
Yeah, Michael Martin Murphy was there the last time I shot it. He was the one singing.
This says here they do like a spook house during the
So it's still when was it built?
1907.
I'll be
Be
darned.
damned.
1907.
Drive by that thing every time I go to Abilene. I think
Well,
nothing
you don't
of it.
really see it because the way you go, you go right, and you're always looking for like going around the curve, and it's like back.
So it's next on that corner.
Right as you make that right turn, it's to your right.
I'm gonna go check it out next time I go there.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
go look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a big opera house back in the 1900s. I'll pull it up right here.
And so what do they use it for today?
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a museum or what it is today, but that's it right there.
No, that's not the building I photographed. No.
That's the Anson Opera House.
Go see photos. Click on that see photos and see if there's some inside pictures of it. Are you blind right there on the
Well,
picture
I
of
got
the
this
building?
light right in front of me, Jeff. I was going to go to this.
No, there was one on the actual page you were on that said see photos.
Sorry. Well, and that's not even a good picture. Why is it going to that?
Well, that's not even it. I don't even know where you're at now.
Oh.
It was the one you were on the very first minute ago. It said see photos. Go back.
Well, Jeff, I'm looking for the back button.
There it is. There you go.
One more back.
Well, you can see, Jeff. Quit being selfish.
Now, if you go on the actual building on the right, there it says see photos and see if it makes you an indoor picture. It's going to say the same. Oh, look at the inside on the left there.
If that's even it.
I'll bet it is.
Think so?
It looks like the old Wichita Theater in Wichita Falls.
Anson Opera House.
Yeah, that didn't. The place I photographed didn't have a stage.
I've drove by that 1,000 times though, and don't think nothing of it.
I guess I have as well. I will tomorrow.
There you go.
You got to go to Abilene tomorrow?
Yeah, I got to take my Toyota.
You having car problems?
Radiator.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, we just bought a new vehicle. We ain't had no problems, but man, there's a whole lot of people are buying 2021 vehicles, having a lot of computer issues.
Really?
Lots.
Well, I ordered, because of the nostalgic aspect of it, I ordered a Bronco.
The big one?
It'll be the Ford Bronco, the one 2022,
The full-sized one.
the full-size one. It'll be here probably next April. I've already paid down on it.
Nice.
I'm going to bet you right now, a nice, friendly breakfast at Isabella's, that you don't have it until July.
Oh, I'm not going to
No,
bet
you'll
you.
have it.
I'm not going to bet you.
You'll have it.
No,
I'm not
I don't
gonna
think
bet
so, because we ordered a vehicle. Let me tell you something. The day of hell. I bought 3 vehicles one day to get one vehicle to drive home.
Really?
After we'd waited 10, 12 weeks to get one we ordered.
Yeah.
But the new Bronco, I can't wait to see it.
I saw it. That's the reason I even got it. Sloan and I went to Lubbock, and she said, "Well, let's go by the Ford place and see if they have one of the new Broncos." I don't want to go by there, you know. We went by there, and their one set, they'd driven it in from the Dallas area, and I got in. I went, "Wow!" Because in 1968, I drove a 1966 Bronco Roadster, U13, and they made 5,000 of them. That's it. And I'm going, wow, an old Bronco. I mean, this is a convertible, but it's got a hard top. Mm-hmm. And she said, "You need another Bronco." And I said, "No, I don't." She said, "You're going to have another Bronco." And so we went in, and it's customized. You order what you want.
Really?
And we sat down there and that guy wrote down exactly what we wanted. We paid down on it, and it's supposed to be here in next April.
Oh, you're going to be the king of Knox County again. I want to see this thing. I had a K5 Blazer, the last big Blazers they made. Yeah. Now, it wasn't the one with the roof off like the whatever the hell they were, the Silverado ones, where I couldn't take it off. It was all one piece. Yeah. But it was the last big one they made in like 93 or 94. And I love that thing. Yeah. And I don't know why the hell they don't make them again. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, a Tahoe is not the same thing as the big full-size Blazer or Bronco. Yeah. And I love the old Broncos. Yeah. And I can't wait to see the damn thing. We bought a new Jeep. Nice. We bought the 3-seat Jeep, but Jeep's got the Wagoneer coming out too, the old fat with the wood panels and stuff.
Oh yeah,
$110,000.
Whoa, this is not that high. The Bronco's not that expensive.
I about shit when they talk $110,000. When you live in a house in Knox City, you don't buy $110,000 vehicle.
No,
that ain't happening. So.
Be like,
I don't care how much money I have. I don't think I could spend $110,000 on a vehicle.
I know I couldn't.
I would be, the practicality would kill me on it.
If I had the money, I'd probably buy a plane, but I wouldn't buy no daggone vehicle. I've got a 2002 Chevy pickup. You've seen it. Front the hood's bent up because I've run over so many deer, and the grill guard has been bent back because I've hit deer and they've bent it into the hood. And I'd hook onto a chain onto a tree on a grill guard, and I'd bend it back out. The thing's got 320,000 miles on it. I belong to the Legacy Club. I've got a little sticker on the back of my pickup, and they got my picture in their album as a Chevy Legacy guy. But and it needs a rear main seal bad. I put like 2 quarts every 10 days in it. And I told someone that I talked to someone the other day, and they said that they're giving like new vehicle prices for used vehicles. I told them, I said, this makes me want to go get another rear main seal for this Chevy. And I'm going to do it. Yeah. And just keep driving because I love the thing.
My truck is a 16. So it's not real old, but it's got 170,000 miles. It's got tornado chasing miles. It's got a lot of most all my miles are either back roads or going to the casino. That's it. Yeah. And it's beat to shit with hail damage from. I've had every window blown out of it from hail chasing storms. And when we bought Michelle a new one, I looked at new pickups. And she goes, "Are you going to get a new pickup?" I said, "No." I said, "Why?" I said, "Because it'll look just like my truck does in 6 months." Yeah. Because I'm not going to not go chase tornadoes because I'm in a new pickup. Yeah. And I'm not going to not drive down a dirt road at 75 miles an hour chasing birds because it's a new pickup. So it's going to look the same. Yeah. And it's paid for. So I said, I'm not buying a new truck. I said, I don't need a new pickup. Yeah. And my goal now is to drive my truck. I'm going to buy me another truck probably in a couple years, but keep mine and drive it to do all my shit in. And then when Reese turns 16 in high school, I'm going to give him old Blackie to drive to school.
Yeah. Reese has an 08 Dodge coming his way.
Well, then I'll give it to Jameson when he gets that way.
So I was looking just real quick. We'll let you go here. They built the Opera House in Anson because they thought that would be incentive to bring the railroad.
Really?
And then the railroad ended up being further south. But
well, someone in Anson's got some serious freaking pull because you can't drive between Wichita Falls and Abilene and have to stop for anywhere except for Anson, Texas.
Anson, Texas.
That's it.
Is the only
it's
place.
bypassed every other town, and I don't understand who Anson's big guy was that slept with someone to keep that highway through there, because that's the only place.
Yeah.
And you could actually go from Abilene to Dallas or to Fort Worth and not have to stop anywhere but in Anson, Texas.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop in Wichita Falls nowhere.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to stop in Abilene.
Right.
So I guess it goes from Brownwood.
Yeah.
And Anson, for some reason, is the only place they haven't bypassed. So somebody in Anson's got some pull.
Yeah, you got some pull.
They do.
Well, Wyman, we appreciate you being on here again.
Hey, thanks
It's a
for
great
having
time.
me, guys.
Your book is still 2022, right?
The
new one that you've got coming.
the calling book.
Yes.
We're hoping.
We're hoping.
We're hoping. Yes, we're hoping. It may be 2023.
Okay.
Well, next time you come and be on the podcast again, I want to buy a coyote call to put in my collection of stuff I have.
I have a brand new breed of coyote call. I made like 50 of them this summer. It's for my collection.
It's wood, right?
It's all wood,
I
made
want
out of ironwood, which is ebony, bodark, and mesquite. It is the most gorgeous call. They're all of this particular style are open reed, so they're hard to blow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like handing you guys a saxophone and say, "Play me a tune," that you want to listen to.
He doesn't care. He
Mine will never
He
get
just
it-
wants a shelf piece.
Mine will be put on the shelf, never even blow it.
These
probably.
things are absolutely gorgeous.
We'll put my name on one, and next
Okay.
time you're in town, holler at me. But I
Okay.
want one.
I've got 55 of them in my collection, and none of them have called a coyote up yet. And I'm fixing to start.
Well, I
Are
want
you
one.
going to sell these, or what are these going to be? You going to?
Oh, probably not, because see, my reed material is so limited.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm still using reed material from 40 years ago,
Right.
and I've only got like one piece left that's like 3 inches by 4 inches, and that's it.
That's it.
That's
Wow.
it. And so these things are very, very limited. I've got some other reed material that works, but the best is that I had back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I showed them yesterday to Charles Jones and Joy Jones there in Benjamin, because I hunted coyotes with him back in the 60s. And I went in, I brought my case, it's a black case, and I said, "Charles, I want you to see this." He opened that up, and all he could do was stare at it. He said, "Man, these are gorgeous. These are beautiful." And they're kind of like works of art, but each one of them has a voice its own. And I mean, I can sit and look at them, and I just want to pick them up and just blow on them and listen to the sound. Celinda can't stand it, but to me, it's music.
Well, I do want one to put in my collection.
Okay.
Wyman, you're fascinating as always. We appreciate you coming out.
Hey,
here.
thanks for having me,
And
guys.
we
I always
have,
enjoy it. You guys are interesting. You guys are.
kept you long enough.
But you make me have to think.
Yeah, we like that. We'll do it again in about 3 months.
Sounds
No, it'll
good.
be longer
All right.
than that. We got hunting season coming up. It'll be
As
spring.
soon as hunting season's over, we'll do it.
Okay, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
There you go.
You
Thanks,
bet.
sir.
Thanks, guys.
What a push. Yes, sir. Boys and girls. Go check out all of our sponsors. Check out Shin Gear Waders, Pacific Calls, Dive Bomb Industries, Boss Shot Shells, Dirty Duck Coffee, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Duck Club, Gun Dog Outdoors, Goose Creek, Fangtail, Eyesight, and Stanfield Hunter.